This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome to episode 6. Man, I can't believe we're at episode 6 on NWA Crock and Roll. This is a special episode, a bonus episode for all our fans and for the nation out there. There'll be 2 this month. Really looking forward to this one, but before we talk about what the show is tonight, I would like to introduce my co-host and our rotating fourth horseman who is back for a return engagement. So first up, Dr. G, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to this show and a little bit of Florida we get in this show. So I actually watched this show live for the first time. So,
and I'm going to ask you about that because I figured you did. So I look forward to hearing about that. So that'll be your little
tidbits that I remember Florida, anyway.
Yeah, your little Dr. G Florida history corner that you give us every episode.
So yeah, definitely. But this is great and nice little Christmas gift for everybody. We get 2 shows this month, which is really nice, and you picked some good ones to go over. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's really amazing how much happens in September. I mean, just that 1 month, so much happens in this just 1 month, and this isn't even the regular.
These guys, they were on the road, I think they were on the road 320, 330 days of the year. I mean, it's just amazing. And same thing for WWF as well. I mean, these guys just were. I don't know how they did it, to be honest with you. How they burned it at every end of the.
I don't either. I can hardly get out of bed every morning, let alone travel.
I know. I'm working from home, and I'm more lazy now than I was when I was getting up 4:30 and going to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning every day. Now it's like I just to get out of bed at 5 o'clock, I'm like scraping myself up.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Calum, you there? Calum's there.
I am here.
You were on mute, I think.
Yes. I've switched today. I've switched technology tonight. I'm on the iPad tonight, and the mute button keeps going away. So
okay.
I am. But you may need to bear with me tonight.
I will bear with you tonight. I already have a kind of conceived notion of what I'm going to have to deal with you tonight, so I'm all prepared.
Yeah, it might be best for the future of this podcast that I stay on mute tonight.
No, it'll be all good, man. We're always happy to have you. So thank you as always for being up late with us tonight. It's much appreciated.
Always a pleasure.
All right, and then our final guest, rotating fourth horseman, is our first return guest, I believe. Our first of 2 return guests this month, Matt Souza, the king of all hate. How are you?
Jeez. Well, thank you for allowing me back. I believe you're the king of all hate. Again, I am merely a prince in your kingdom. It is an honor to be back here on the number 1 Paul Jones podcast and in front of the number 1 Paul Jones fan. So thank you for having me back.
I don't know if we're not going to get into this tonight. Unfortunately for you, there is no Paul Jones tonight. However, I did have the second runner-up in that for you tonight, so I made sure we had him special for your appearance this evening.
Thanks again for that. Appreciate it. You
are very welcome. So you know Paul Jones, but I can't wait till we get to our second favorite wrestler in this whole entire podcast. So with that, guys, again, thanks for being here. So we're just going to talk about what we're doing. So this month we have 2 podcasts. This show is what we call our September Super Show episode, and there's 3 real big super shows that happened in the month of September '85. At the end of the last episode, we kind of give you a little context of Florida. We watched Championship Wrestling for Florida episode in our last show to set up the main event of the Battle of the Belts show that opens up where we're going to start. And then we're going to go over to World Wrestling Council in Puerto Rico. And then we have SuperClash, which is kind of the joint AWA/NWA partnership that they were still doing back in the day. So really 3 big world title matches. We have 3 Road Warrior matches, multiple title matches. So we'll we'll be doing this episode, and then we'll be doing our regular September watch on December 30th. So, and we'll have Jacob Williams on there for that one. So we're just going to talk about the matches, talk about these shows, give our thoughts on these matches as well, and hopefully have a good time talking about it. It gets us a little bit out of that Crockett right now, because all of these are out of that Crockett territory. These are all different territories, different bookers, different shows. So we're kind of expanding our horizons a little bit, getting out of Crockett. So it's pretty exciting. Before we get started though, it seems unfortunate that every time we do one of these shows, we have someone from our past or a wrestler from our past that passes away. And at the time of this recording yesterday, Pat Patterson passed away. And I know a lot of people that listen to this pod are the younger generation and probably know him more for the Attitude Era. But Dr. G, I'm going to throw it over to you. You're obviously like me, watched wrestling growing up in a earlier era, and I figured it'd be good to go over to you with some thoughts on Pat Patterson.
Well, Pat Patterson's one of the great minds in the business. I mean, he's the guy who created what some people call one of the greatest gimmick matches, which is the Royal Rumble. And he mentored so many great wrestlers. I mean, everyone has such a great, The Rock, Stone Cold, Triple H. I mean, just the list goes on and on in terms of people he mentored throughout the years. And, we obviously know him for the Attitude Era as one of the Stooges. And, he played off that great. And he was just the right-hand man to Vince McMahon. And, I think he's beloved by, I think most of the wrestling universe. I really haven't heard a negative word about him. And, he had a great tag team with Ray Stevens in the AWA. He's held a lot of, regional titles. Just somebody that will be missed. And I didn't realize he was sick. So, I mean, it was kind of sudden to me. I maybe people knew about it. I didn't know anything about it, to be honest.
Yeah,
so
apparently he had dementia too. That all came out after he passed away. I mean,
I didn't know any of this. Wow. Yeah, and it's funny because I even noticed, when you listen to a lot of other podcasts and you hear, people who are close to him, people weren't really talking about him like in current day anymore. Like when you listen to Pritchard's podcast or whatever, they would always refer to him like more of things in the past. So it was kind of sudden. I didn't realize, again, that he was sick, and he's just going to be a mind that's missed in the business. And, he was a key cog in the WWE. So
first ever Intercontinental Champion in the imaginary tournament in Rio de Janeiro. So yeah, that's a pretty famous
that's right.
one.
You're going back. Yep, that's exactly right. I'm remiss for not saying
the
that because
legendary tournament. So it's
he couldn't even pronounce it. Oh my gosh, he couldn't even pronounce Rio de Janeiro with his accent.
So Pat Patterson, rest in peace. I know
yes,
you guys on Saturday Special will have more to say about that, which actually by the time this airs, that'll already have been on. But
right. So talk about it though.
Yeah, so if you guys that episode should be on by the time this is out, so make sure you go back and listen to that. And I would also say, if you haven't seen the tribute they did on NXT last night, at the time of this recording, it was really well done, and it was a really, really cool thing where Pat Patterson really was a big karaoke guy, and they had him singing "My Way" along with Frank Sinatra. My Way. Sorry, yeah, with Frank Sinatra, and had all the pictures of his career and everything in the background. It was really cool.
He loved that song. I mean, I've heard that he would sing that in every, like if they got together with the guys, he would need to find a karaoke bar so he could sing that song at the end of the night.
Yep. So definitely listen to the Saturday Special and go check out that tribute as well. So, and with that, I think we're ready to go. So, Matt and Calum, you guys ready to go?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to jump right into it. So our first September show was on September 2nd of 1985. It is in Tampa, Florida at the Sun Dome, and it drew 7,600 fans. And they would have had more fans, but apparently a really bad hurricane had hit in Florida. And I'm going to turn this over to Dr. G in a minute after I outline what the card is. But it's called Battle of the Belts, and I believe it was on TV. And it was from Championship Wrestling for Florida, and that is also a part of the NWA, but not necessarily Crockett. So I'm going to go run down the card and the matches they had besides the ones that we watched, and then we'll go from there. So they had Hector and Chavo Guerrero beat Rip Oliver and the Grappler. That was one match. Coco Samoa pinned Rip Rogers. The very thin Kendall Windham at the time pinned Jack Hart, who we all know is oh my gosh,
Barry Horowitz.
Barry Horowitz, thank you. Yeah, and that was for the Florida title. So Kendall Windham won the Florida title in 1985. Then the other match that was supposed to be Nick Bockwinkel versus Rick Martel for the AWA title, which would have been amazing. But Rick Martel didn't make it, and so he faced some generic guy named Frankie Lane, who I'm not really familiar with. And those are the matches that took place besides the three that we're going to watch tonight. So, Dr. G, I know you are very familiar with Florida, and you're also familiar with this show. So before we start talking about the matches we're going to talk about, anything you'd like to share about this show or your memory of it?
Well, I do remember that the show was they were worried about the show because of the storm coming. So they would have definitely had more fans. The show was really heavily booked. Now, what happened was they syndicated it to all the different stations around the state. So I think I got it on Channel 6, I believe, in down in the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area. And, so this was like a pretty big deal, I remember, for that time, to have a show that was going to be, broadcast throughout the whole state. And I think it was going to be in even some other states as well. And it was on at night. But I just remember the storm being the big thing, and everybody was wondering if, at that time we didn't have the internet to know all the behind the scenes, but we weren't sure who was going to show up or who was going to be able to make it and, be on the card that evening. And it definitely would have been nicer to see a bigger crowd, but still to get 7,600 fans with the storm the way it was, definitely it was a key for them. Because you imagine, like, if you only had like 600 fans in there with a card like that.
Absolutely, that'd be awful.
Yeah, so I mean, it was definitely. But I just remember the storm being the no pun intended, the black cloud over the whole event, because we were worried. And I remember, just telling my dad, "Are we going to be able to watch this? I'm really looking forward to this," because they were pumping this up on the shows, on the syndicated shows, the Florida Championship Wrestling syndicated shows, like crazy. So, really you got looked forward to it. And remember, at that time we didn't have all the big shows like we're so used to getting now. So
yeah,
this
I think
was
we're in '85. I don't think we even had I don't think the wrestling class. I don't even think we had our first major show, Wrestling Classic. I know the NWA had these little circuit shows, like they had the closed circuit shows, like they had the Final Conflict in '83. I think so. I know They had those little shows, but this is almost to me like a precursor to what Clash of the Champions would have become almost.
Right. And, but when you're watching this, and I'd love to hear what the other guys, especially that are younger than us, what they think is like, could you imagine if they had the production quality that the WWF had? Even at that time, WWF's quality of production was better. I was watching, like, the camera angles weren't so great. Like, you could tell it was definitely not the great production quality that WWF had for the show. They just didn't know how to market. And if they knew how to market those guys in the NWA and these territories, we would be talking about different kind of wrestling these days.
Yeah, I agree with you on the whole camera and things like that, and they didn't know. And we did have the all-time great Gordon Soley on the call here. Unfortunately, we had the all-time not great Mike Graham as his co-commentator. So yeah, it's an interesting commentary.
He did,
too.
And I do get it for the younger guys where they don't really get the Gordon Soley thing, because I hear that a lot. It's just, I guess, for me, and it's kind of like nostalgia, and then probably for the generation after their JR or certain people, you kind of just have this, it just kind of brings you back to good times when you were younger. So for me, losing my dad at a young age, that's the thing that we really had. Wrestling was that, especially championship wrestling from Florida. That was our thing that we did together. So, so it brings back memories for me. So I love hearing Gordon Soley. But I get maybe why people, because, you're so used to the over-the-top announcers that you hear today, and you're not going to get that from him. He was very, methodical in his approach, but he treated it like a real sport. and that's what I think what the credibility he gave the sport credibility or the entertainment, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely, he did. So with that, Dr. G, thank you for that summary. And we're going to jump right into our first match that we're going to watch. So we watched 3 matches from each show. The first match we're going to watch is for the Southern Heavyweight title. And I think on the last podcast we did, the last episode, we kind of likened this to the I think this is this like the main Florida title, and then the Florida title is like the U.S. title in comparison, Dr. G, or which one's more important, Florida or Southern?
It's funny you say that, and I was going to bring this up tonight. Even as a kid, I couldn't tell. It seemed like they treated the Florida title as the main title, and the Southern Championship as like their, the Florida title was like the world title, and the Southern title was like the U.S. title.
But Southern covers more territory, so it's.
I know that was my whole point. But if you watch enough Florida Championship Wrestling from Florida shows, it just seemed like the Florida Championship was highlighted a little bit more. That's one's a tough one because it's so funny when they would even on Crockett sometimes at the beginning thing they would have Florida as part of their you would see at the beginning of the show. They would show all the states for the Mid-Atlantic show, and then they would have Florida in there. But Florida wasn't part of their territory. Well, same thing with Championship Wrestling from Florida. The other southern states were not part of their territory. So that's why I think the Florida belt was probably considered the higher ranking belt.
Well, part of my issue might be that we had Barry Horowitz as the Florida champion, and here we have Rick Rude. So there's a big difference between the two. So maybe the Southern title seems more important to me. So
yeah, I think
the women fighting for it. It's.
I think you're right. You know what? I think when I do have to say around this time the Southern Championship was getting. I think they were using it a little better. You had guys like Rick Rude, Lex Luger. I mean, I know a lot of people criticize Lex Luger, but he did go on to be a star. So
there's no one on this pod that criticizes Lex Luger, right, Matt Souza?
Heavens no.
That was a really good setup, and it wasn't even like on purpose. I thought that was great. Well done.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, Jack Hart is the champion now. I never realized, when I was younger, okay, that was Barry Horowitz when he came to WWF, until later on I didn't realize that. So, it was definitely the belt. But then, Billy Jack Haynes, or at the time Billy Jack, he was like one of my favorites at that time. He was the Florida champion, and they were making such a big deal when he was the champion, and he only held it for like a few months. But, it felt like the guys, even when they held the belts for a few months, it felt like it was forever sometimes, because you had the weekly shows, and I don't know. It was just just different. I think you just interpret things differently when you're younger than when you're when you're older and you become a little more jaded like we are at this age now.
Yeah, jaded, old, and angry. That's at least me. So anyway,
sounds like Scott.
Right. Well, no, it's me too. So it's okay. And Matt sometimes he's just a lot younger than I am. So we're gonna look at. Go ahead, Matt. I know you want to say something before we start.
No, I got nothing.
All right. So we're gonna jump right into the match. So Rick Rude is your Southern Heavyweight champion, and he's managed by Percy Pringle, who we all know goes on to be Paul Bearer, and they are facing Billy Jack Haynes, which a lot of people that know WWF know both these guys, so it's interesting to see him in '85. I believe Billy Jack goes to WWF, I think in '86, and Rude much later on because he goes through Crockett and the NWA first. So it's really cool to see these two guys together. We've already seen them once on one of our shows in a match for the U.S. Tag Team titles. So this one's Florida, and it's for the Southern title. So Billy Jack comes out to the great 80s classic, We Need a Hero. And I know when I think of Billy Jack Haynes, I think of We Need a Hero. It's a really good 80s banger song, and it was very funny for him to come out to it. He has NWA on his tights, so definitely promoting the NWA on his backside. Billy Jack still is one half of the U.S. champions with Wahoo, the U.S. Tag Team champions. So we talked about in great length that that's the Florida U.S. Tag Championship, not the one that we all grew up to know and love later in the 80s. Even here, he's touted as the master of the full Nelson. So if you remember when he came into the WWF, the full Nelson was a big part of his gimmick. It is here as well. Rude comes out to Smooth Operator, which is my all-time favorite Rick Rude intro song, and I believe most of us know that. Yeah, it's fantastic with him. I hate the song in general, but with Rude, I always
but for him, it was perfect.
Yep. Yep, and he's in full beard, so we don't have the Rick Rude mustache. We have the Rick Rude full beard here. So I will say I'm a big belt guy, and I want your guys' opinion on it. You know, in our group chat over on the regular chat, Matt, we talk about belts a lot. I'm not too impressed with the Southern Heavyweight title. It's just a belt with a bunch of circles on it. So, Calum, do you have any thoughts on the Southern Championship belt? I'm unimpressed.
It's very old school. I think is probably the best way to term it. When you see the one that Billy Jack comes out with, it's a bit more up our alley generally. But yeah, old school. I think.
Yeah, Billy Jack's is a lot like
the
national tag team titles. It looks very similar to that one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's more if it's you know if it can have a stink of the Andersons in any way, shape, or form, then it's good in my book.
Any chance I can name the Andersons, since we don't get to see him in this show, I'm going to throw it out there. So good call. All right, Mr. Souza, what do you think of the Southern title?
Yeah, it looked kind of. I'm looking for another word besides low rent, but I don't
value.
know. It kind of, basically, yeah. It looked like any belt you would have seen on any territory in the 80s, basically. It was just very kind of generic to me.
Yeah, I feel like I saw Jerry Lawler wear that same belt for like 30 years. That's what it reminded me of. So, Dr. G, what did you think of the Southern title?
Well, you know, Jerry Lawler had their version of the Southern title too. Yes, that was the kind of you guys are right. It was the kind of titles they were using at that time. The Florida titles is similar. That was a championship. I actually got to hold the actual Florida Heavyweight Championship, and it's similar to the. I think it was like more of like a bluish color on the on the what is it, the medallions, I guess, on the belts. And it was Billy Jack's title that I got to actually hold. It's so funny that he's such a nut job that he is, because he was one of the nicest guys. He took time always to sign for all the fans, always spoke to everybody, was very friendly. Like I said, let me carry his belt when he was walking to his car. He was, that's why it pains me to see how he is today, because he was one of my favorites at that time.
I think he like sees aliens and stuff now, right? Is that what?
Yeah, I don't know. He's all over the place, but he was very big up in the Pacific Northwest. So before he came to Florida, they showed a lot of video on him. Yep. And as we'll get into the match, he's really not that bad of a wrestler.
No, he's not.
I mean, he for a power guy.
Yep. I agree. All right, so I'm going to go to the match. So Billy Jack and Rude go nose to nose. The first thing that also popped to me is Bill Alfonso is the ref. So ECW fanatics, Bill Alfonso is a referee in '85 Championship Wrestling for Florida. Sully said that Rude has no wasted flesh, which really made me laugh. That's quite the call there when you say someone has no wasted flesh. And then he starts running down all Rude's great body parts. So very humorous Gordon Soley to open this up. Billy Jack fires the crowd up, and the crowd is really into it. And then they boo Rude flexing. Billy Jack flexes, and all the ladies, of course, go crazy. And then we get into the big tropes of test of strength to open. Haynes wins with an atomic drop and then a drop kick. There's a crisscross. There's shoulder blocks. Billy Jack hits a backdrop and a full Nelson, but Rude escapes through the ropes. The other part of this, I don't know if you guys caught this. Did you catch them flashing to an artist sketching in the crowd of the match? Did you guys catch that?
Oh,
I did.
Yeah, so I found that I don't think I've ever seen a show in wrestling where they've had someone sketching at ringside, so that made me laugh quite a bit. So anyway, lots of Billy Jack headlocks and chin locks, we see a lot of these in these Crockett NWA matches. We see that a lot. Rude gets control with clothesline and punches, kicks Billy Jack outside, and then throws him into the rails. Then he superplexes Billy Jack's back into the ring, hits a fist drop to back from the rope. And then goes into a camel clutch that Gordon calls a Russian sickle. So I don't know if you caught that when he put him in a camel clutch, Gordon called it a Russian sickle. So clearly Gordon doesn't watch a lot of Crockett wrestling with the Russians, apparently. Rude hits a nice backdrop on Haynes, a rope exchange, and more blows to back and kidney areas. Lots of punching, elbows, eye rakes. Haynes reverses a suplex. Both men are down in and Rude misses a top rope fist drop at one point. Crowd goes wild. Billy Jack with punches, knees, kicks, and clotheslines, a backbreaker, a gut wrench suplex for 2. He gets a press slam, which was really impressive, but Pringle trips Billy Jack from outside with a cane and gives Rude a 2 count. And then Billy Jack, as moronic as this seems, goes to yells at Pringle. Rude grabs a cane and clocks him from behind and gets the 3 count and wins. So Rick Rude retains the Southern title. I will go to Calum first. What did you think of the match, and what did you rate it?
I thought it was quite good. As you said, we saw these two in the tag match in a previous episode. It was, and these two were sort of the highlight of it when they get in. And I think you're right what you say. Billy Jack is a lot better than what his physique would make it out. Would make you believe. I also made a note of the court. What I've said is the court artist is in the front row drawing the guys, and I'll give you and Dr. G and any other rotating horseman permission to shout me down if I ever criticise Gordon Soley again, because Mike Graham's commentary is the worst I have ever heard.
Yeah, you notice how I cut the commentary part out with Mike Graham's, because I'm with you. I can't stand him.
It was getting to the point where I was going to start watching the matches on mute, because it was mind numbing how bad it was. The two of them work within the limits. They know what they're good at, so they're not going to overstretch the mark and try anything that they know that they can't do. And I thought that worked, and it's worked in its favour. I've got a note that it might have gone too long. I'm thinking back on it now. I'm not too sure about that one. I might have been a bit harsh on it.
I can tell you, it went 14 minutes.
So how long did you say it went, John? You cut out a wee bit now.
I'm sorry, 14 minutes.
14 minutes. So it doesn't. I think I might have been a bit harsh in saying it went a bit too long. I think that's probably about right. I thought the match was all right. I've got it down as a 1.75. I thought it was all right.
All right, that's a little lower than I got, but I'll save mine till the end. I'll go to Matt Souza next. Matt, what'd you think?
This match, to me, it kind of felt like a WWF house show match. Like two muscly guys, just, a lot of headlocks, a lot of punches, a lot of kicks, which, given where both guys would end up, it kind of makes sense that that's the type of match they would have. And I didn't think it was too bad. I thought the crowd helped it a lot, because I think with a dead crowd, I don't think this match would have been as good as it was.
Well, they were hot for Billy Jack, so.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But a bit too headlocky and chinlocky for my liking. But again, the hot crowd really helped with that, and that's what I mean when I say house show match. A lot of headlocks, punches and kicks. The finish was what it was. I mean, it's a territory show, so you're going to see finishes like that. Finishes like that are pretty common. Mm-hmm. So I ended up going 2 on it overall, 2 stars.
Okay, very good. Dr. G, what'd you think?
Well, like I said, Billy Jack at that time was one of my favorites, and I enjoyed it. You're right. The crowd did help that. But the crowd got into it because of there was heat on. Rick Rude had that heat factor even back at that time. And the fans did love Billy Jack at that time. He was really, really popular down in Florida for a few years. And, a lot of the typical – I agree with Matt. Like, you had that house show feel with a lot of the headlocks and, the typical, muscle guy stuff. But Billy Jack could go. I mean, he actually can, he could wrestle. But, at that time, Rick Rude was still a little raw himself. And I don't know if they could have the kind of technical match or, the 5-star matches we call as that you would expect or you would want to see. I went a little higher than everyone else, but I went with a 2.5 just because I thought they got the crowd in it. They did what they wanted to do. The ending, typical. I was used to that down in Florida, the territory ending, if you want to call it, or the NWA typical dusty finishes, get the manager involved. When they have a manager, the manager's going to get involved somehow in the outcome. That's just the way it was in those days. And, like I said, you get a little more jaded as you're older.
Well, yeah, you
but
see it with Paul Jones. Yeah, you see that stuff with Paul Jones all the time. So, yeah.
J.J. Dillon, all of them. So, yeah, I went 2.5. I enjoyed it. It was again, it could be for me, like I said, because it just brings a little nostalgia back for me. So I'll probably rate things a little higher than I normally would in other circumstances. But I enjoyed it.
All right, I wasn't too far off from you. I went 2.25. So I thought it was a good showing between both guys. I thought there were some impressive power spots. To Matt's point, there was a lot of headlocks, a lot of choking, a lot of the just kind of the same kind of stuff you typically see in these NWA mid-'80s matches. But I thought there was enough there for a solid match, and the crowd definitely made it. There was definitely great heat on Rude and definitely great fandom for Billy Jack. So, and you know what? I know Billy Jack's going to show up in Crockett for us over the course of the next few months. So I look forward to seeing what he brings to the table there, because I don't really know Billy Jack beyond WWF after 86.
To me, he never was the same way he was in Florida anywhere else, even in WWF. He just was never able to get to that it factor to take him to the top. He had it when he was in Florida. He was really I don't know what it was, but maybe he did have some issues that we didn't realize.
Well, when he's doomed to team with an aged post-jail Ken Patera against Demolition, and that's the highlight of his career there. It's pretty bad. So
yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to move to match number 2. This one is pretty cool. So this is our first of 3 Road Warrior matches tonight. So Warriors are on the Ric Flair train, it seems like. Wherever Flair goes, the Warriors go this month. So this is for the AWA Tag Team titles. And again, this is that partnership that the AWA, NWA had at the time that they were doing. So the Road Warriors are facing Stan Hansen and Handsome Harley Race. And the star power in this match, like, I am a huge Stan Hansen mark. He's tough. He's rigid. I love his clothesline. And Harley Race, what more can you say about Harley Race? Both these guys are former world champions. Race, NWA world champion. Hansen, an AWA world champion. I don't think he has won it at this point yet, but he will at some point. Hansen, right out of the gate, Hansen, as he's coming to the ring, is throwing stuff all around, and Race is right behind him. The entrances are a little goofy. Like, there's someone standing by the door, and it looks like a gymnasium with a smoke machine, and it looks like they're just blowing a smoke machine out. It looks a little goofy with the Road Warriors coming out. It's like, when you think Road Warriors, you think big, massive entrances, and I'm not used to seeing a smoke machine just coming from a gymnasium door, so I thought that looked a little goofy. This has, for me, like, before this match started, this kind of had like the context of a JR slobber knocker going into it, where these should just be a big, huge brawl against all these guys. So I was really excited for it. Paul Ellering should never shave his mustache ever again. So I thought that was pretty interesting that he shaved his mustache. I don't like that. So they all start fighting before the intros are even done outside the ring. And I love that they're calling them the Hawk and the Animal. So there's the in front of Hawk and Animal. So that was funny. Hansen clocks a ring post, missing the Animal, and then sells it. Race hits Hawk with Stan's cowbell. And it's a really fun brawl to start. And once it settles, it gets in the ring, and it's Hawk and Race. They exchange punches, knees, kicks, and headbutts, kind of like the stereotypical stuff we already talked about. But then all 4 end up in the ring again, and Hawk elbows Hansen off the ropes. And then they go outside and start fighting again. Animal and Harley beat each other inside the ring. Chairs are flying outside. Animal hits a body slam on Race. It settles down again, and Hawk works over Race in the ring. Hansen tags in and slams and elbows Hawk. Hawk comes back with an impressive slam on Hansen. And then starts working over Hansen. Match goes outside again as Animal throws Hansen into the ring post, and all 4 start fighting again. This ends up just like, there's just so many spots. There's suplexes, there's press slams on Harley Race. It's just, there's so much going on, and it ends up being a big, huge schmoz. And they fight outside the ring. It's a double count out, and then they immediately cut the commercial. I thought the match, I'll give you my thoughts on the ratings of this match, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun brawl. But it was really, ending was very, very sudden, and then he just cut the commercial, and I really wanted more from this match. So, Matt, what'd you think? Go to you first.
Yeah, really, really fun brawl. Just the pace these four guys were able to keep, except for that, there was a slow stretch in the middle where they slowed down a little bit when they started trading like face locks because basically they had to catch their breath. But
by the way, 10 minutes on the money,
right,
exactly 10 minutes.
Exactly 10 minutes. I mean, they just kept a wild pace. And you look at this match on paper, right? And Road Warriors and Stan Hansen and Harley Race, like, you had to kind of know going into it that there wasn't going to be a clean finish, right?
Or the greatest of all time. Like, on paper, this is amazing.
You're not going to pin the Road Warriors. They're not losing the titles yet. And, I mean, Harley Race and Stan Hansen certainly aren't going to get pinned. So, I mean, I feel like it was kind of telegraphed that you were going to get some sort of double DQ or double count out, especially with the match starting the way it did. But, just a really wild brawl. They're throwing chairs. They're punching each other on the floor. I thought this was really, really great. I went 3 stars on this.
Oh, Matt, amazing. I agree. And by the way, so I'm going to go. So since Matt said I went 3 stars too, I really enjoyed this match. Dr. G, what'd you think?
Well, we're going to go 3 for 3. I gave it 3 stars as well because, again, you look at this on paper and you're like, wow, this is going to be a good brawl. And that's what it is. You're not going to get a technical wrestling match here, and that's not what anybody wanted anyway as a fan. And I just love how they were fighting in the I think it was it Hawk and Hansen were fighting out in the crowd and the chairs, those they look like the chairs you have in school or whatever, those plastic chairs.
Old 80s like plastic with the 4 legs chairs, yeah.
And they're throwing those things around and hitting each other with them. Just a good old-fashioned brawl. What you would expect now. Again, watching it now, you would like, oh yeah, either one of these teams are not going to lose. I don't think I was thinking that way in those days. I was probably like, at that time I was a Road Warrior fan. I was hoping the Road Warriors would beat them.
Well, in '85, I would have been all in on that match in '85. Like, I would have been stoked to see it based on who the 4 of those were.
Oh yeah, that's it. I remember because again, the Road Warriors really captured my attention. At that time in that age, because when you first started watching wrestling, you didn't have guys like that. These guys were it was something totally different. Now, as we got into the late 80s, it wasn't that big of a deal, but to see guys like that back in the early to mid 80s, that was unbelievable. And I just love a good old fashioned brawl every once in a while. I don't need to have what people call the 5-star match and the technical stuff all the time. Sometimes you just need a good out-and-out brawl. I don't want to see Road Warrior and Hawk and Animal. And you're right, they did put a lot of it in the territories. They always said that. Yep. Yeah, they did that. I don't know if that was done on purpose, but
in the early 80s, they did that a lot with them. A lot.
They did. And they I don't want to see those guys in a technical match. Come on. I want to see them crush people.
I would even go as far as to say that this, like, the Road Warriors aren't known for like great matches. They're known for fighting and just kicking people's ass. I would say for me, this might be one of the best, my favorite Road Warrior matches I've ever watched. That's how far I'll go with it, because you don't get a lot of 3-4-star matches with the Road Warriors. You really don't.
No, you don't. But this one was because, again, we knew what to expect when we went into watching it, but they did a good job, and the pacing was really good for 4 big guys. They really, the pacing of the match, and yes, they had to have that little break in the middle, but that's what you're taught to do. That's what you're taught to do when you're having matches at that time. When they were trained, that's what you do when you need to slow things down a bit. But the crowd was really hot for it as well, and
it was a fun 10 minutes.
I have no problems with giving it 3 stars. I have no problems with giving it 3 stars at all.
Okay, Colin McDougall, what'd you think?
I thought this was excellent. When we were into when I saw this match was on the match card that you put together for us tonight, Sean, it was my eyes lit up, because you've just got 4 tough guys just beating the shit out of each other. It's wonderful. Yeah. If this match had never made it to the ring and you had 5 to 10 minutes of them just walking around the arena, hitting each other with anything that wasn't nailed down like they were doing right at the very start, I probably would have given this 5 stars. The start was right up my alley. As it happened, they went into the ring and they had the bit in the middle where it slowed down a bit. But yeah, 3 stars for me as well. I thought it was fantastic. They were, it was just 4 tough bastards beating the shit out of each other. What more could you ask for?
All right, so sounds like a unanimous 3 stars on that one. So excellent. So all right, so now we're going to go to the main event of the show, and this is going to have a lot of differing opinions based on what I know. Might be some controversy in this, so I look forward to talking about this match. So everybody buckle down. So there's a lot going on in this match. This is kind of a long read because 1, the match is about 42 minutes, and 2, it's a 2 out of 3 falls match. So it's Nature Boy Ric Flair in his first world title match of 3 we're going to talk about tonight, taking on Wahoo McDaniel. And we had Wahoo McDaniel on in the past. Again, same match we saw with Billy Jack when they're defending their U.S. tag titles. I believe it was in our August watch. But Wahoo is admittedly winding down his career here. I know we definitely see him in 86. His, glory days are in the late 70s. And even if you go back to 84, he's got a really good heel run in 84, but he's definitely in that kind of winding down his career here, even though in 1988, he's got a huge feud he's got going on in the AWA with Manny Fernandez, but we don't cover AWA really, except if the Road Warriors are their champions. But anyway, so a really interesting match. I've had very limited exposure to Wahoo pre-86. So this has been fascinating for me because I remember I always hear the stories about Wahoo, and even Flair himself has said Wahoo's one of the toughest bastards. He can outdrink anybody. You didn't want to get in a fight with him. You always hear those legendary stories about him. So I thought this was an interesting matchup. We saw the promo at the end of last episode that we did where they both did a promo on each other, and here we are. So it's no intros. So both are in the ring right after commercial, which I thought that was really weird. This is probably one of the first times, and guys, maybe you can help me with this. I don't think we've heard the belt called the 10 pounds of gold. This might be the first time I've heard it called that since we started this podcast. Is that accurate, Calum and Dr. G?
I think so. I don't remember it being called that any other times that we started watching.
Yeah, Calum?
No, I can't remember either. The only reference that's somewhat similar is when they always refer it to when we compare it to the US. This one's my one's gold and your one's silver.
Yeah,
it's never been 10 pounds of gold before, I don't think.
Yeah, so I marked out when they said that. I immediately wrote it down. I was like, "Ooh, this is the first time I've heard 10 pounds of gold." So that's pretty cool. So
and they do say it. I mean, I remember as a kid, we knew it was the 10 pounds of gold. So he does say it, I think, later on, or especially when the Horsemen are created. But this is definitely the first time since we started watching the 85 shows and
it lives on today in modern day NWA, even though it's not really modern day anymore in part time. So I won't move on from that. Anyway,
definitely.
We'll steer away from that. That's a Saturday special. We'll steer away from that for you guys. Anyway, so Flair, is taunting and strutting to start. We tie up with a Flair wrist lock, takes Wahoo down, which it's hard to believe that you're taking Wahoo down with a wrist lock because he's really big. But Wahoo reverses and takes Flair to the ground. Flair's already bleeding from a previous cut. He already had a previous cut, and he's already bleeding. Chops exchange, and this chops, Wahoo's chops are amazing. I don't care if you're a fan of Wahoo or not, which I know somebody on this pod really isn't, and we'll hear about that later. His chops are stiff, and they just look brutal as shit. Flair takes control with a front face lock, including the rope for leverage. The ref breaks it up, and him and Flair and Alfonso shove each other. And Flair is this is a big Flair trope in the 80s where he fights with the refs. Usually it's with Tommy Young, so it was funny to see him do it with Alfonso. The crowd goes nuts for that. Wahoo has more chops to Flair as Flair keeps going outside. He's clearly frustrated. And then he comes in, he starts, Wahoo works the leg. Flair takes control with chops and punches, goes for an elbow and misses, and Wahoo goes back to the leg as Flair yells in pain. Like, this is famous Flair where he does this a lot where he's like hurting and he'll go, "Oh God!" Like, he's famous for that, and that goes throughout the whole arena. So that's pretty funny. We can go on later in the match. Flair goes for some cool pins as he stretches his legs out on amateur style. So when he's got Wahoo's down, he's like really stretching his legs out. Makes it look really cool, which I thought was a nice touch. Graham started pointing out things Wahoo could have done better to escape. and I wanted to tell him to piss off because I could never see Mike Graham's facing Ric Flair and then him coaching Wahoo on what he should do. The arm work here is really tremendous as Flair does really different things with it. They exchange different positions and holds. I really enjoyed this. I know some people will probably think it's boring. I know it's kind of a lot of slow work, but I don't find it boring. I feel like they're doing different things to kind of make it not that way. Wahoo gets a headbutt after a few Flair chops and gets back in the game and chops galore, and they're so freaking stiff. Wahoo gets some penitence, but Flair gets to the ropes. More brutal chop exchanges. Wahoo gets a sleeper and gets the first fall on a sleeper. So I'm going to go around the horn, and I want to hear what your thoughts were on the first fall and leading up to it, because it was a very long segment. So I will start with Dr. G. What did you think of everything leading to the first fall?
Well, again, you got to watch wrestling in a different way at that time. It's so much psychology involved in that
That's
first
why I
fall.
went to you first, because I knew you were going to go that route, and I love it.
And I just, again, we've been trained now to have short matches, everything be quick, and so I have to kind of put my old glasses on and watch it differently. And I really enjoyed watching it because I was breaking it down. And Wahoo, again, he's not up to par with Ricky Steamboat or any of the other challengers that Flair, his main challengers, Dusty Rhodes even at that time. But Wahoo did a pretty good job. I mean, Wahoo is I'm getting to have a little bit more appreciation for him watching back. I probably he didn't really do much for me at that time. I don't remember being, I liked him better as a heel, obviously. He didn't really do anything for me as a face, to be honest. I mean, yeah, he was Billy Jack's tag team partner, and, I loved Billy Jack, but he didn't really do anything for me there. But in this match, they almost kind of made it the build-up, like, this is going to be Wahoo's last shot. So, at that time, you always felt like, oh my gosh, I could actually see a title change, especially this is on television throughout the whole state.
And he had just pinned Flair in that tag team match leading up to it too. So
right.
Yep.
So I liked it. I liked the psychology. Normally in these falls, obviously the challenger is going to usually get the first fall. But
with the sleeper, did that surprise you that it was from a sleeper hold?
It was surprising because now Flair has to, they have to, wake him, and he has to fight the rest of the match. So it was kind of a different finish than I expected.
Okay.
But again, that's what I liked about it. It was something different, especially watching it back. I didn't remember that, even though I did see the show originally, I didn't remember that's how that first fall went. So I thought it was definitely kind of surprising watching it back. Wow, sleeper. Something you don't really see very often except for on the, the squash matches you'd see on TV, when somebody gets beat with a sleeper hold. So I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed the first fall.
And I agree with you. I think you have to watch it in a different way and really appreciate the psychology of how it was laid out. And that's what I did appreciate. I know
and I just wish Gordon had somebody else better.
Besides Mike Graham.
Yeah, I mean, even Buddy Colt, who's on the syndicated shows, just somebody that could complement Gordon, but not Mike Graham. Mike Graham just sounds like a carny. I don't know.
Mike Graham talking about what Wahoo should have done differently, I immediately wanted to punch him in the face.
Exactly. Like, who the hell you think you are? Because you're Eddie Graham's son. Go away.
Yeah. All right. I'll go to Calum next. So only the first fall, not Wahoo, not the first match, not the whole match. Just no rating, Calum. Just tell us about the first fall and your thoughts.
Well, I completely agree with you about Mike Graham. So I've got a note here, and I mentioned it I'm sure I mentioned it on a special releases one time, that if you remember back to Judgment Day 2000 and King's commentary on the Iron Man, it was one of the best he's ever done, because he was breaking down what it's like to be a wrestler in a big match, and he knew it was going to go an hour, so he was plotting out, this is why they're doing this, and this is, so that was one of his best. For how good King was that night is how bad Mike Graham was in this one.
I agree.
It's just unbelievable. First fall, my summary note for the first fall. I also wanted to point out, did anyone notice how shaky the ring looked?
I mean, the whole camera work was shaky. Everything was shaky.
Every time they went into the corner, they worked them into the corner. The thing looked as if it was about to collapse. The note I've got here: 15 minutes gone. 15 minutes of hammerlocks and chops. But I know it's going long, so I won't bitch about the stalling. But I hope it gets going soon. Just bear that in mind. First fall, awful content, awful finish, just awful.
Oh my God, Calum, you're so wow, really? That's gonna be your take on the first, just awful, the first fall, huh?
Just awful.
Wow, this might be Calum McDougal's last appearance on this show, ladies and gentlemen. So,
if it is, just wait for the next 10 or so minutes, because if it is, I'm going down swinging.
All right, Matt Souza, what'd you think of the first fall?
Wow.
Like you guys had said, I thought the psychology was really good. I mean, yeah, it doesn't make for the most exciting of matches, but I mean, you knew they were going long, right? So, I mean, you knew that the first fall was probably going to be a while, and I mean, they weren't going to throw pile drivers and whatnot in the first fall in 15 minutes when you know they're going relatively long. So I thought that was interesting, and I thought Wahoo winning by sleeper was kind of caught me off guard a little bit.
Yeah, that was weird. Yeah.
Like you kind of had a feeling Wahoo was going to take one of these falls, right? Like very rarely does Flair win 2 out of 3 falls match 2-0. In fact, I don't know if he ever did, but yeah, to win by a sleeper hold, I thought was very surprising. So, but yeah, to this point, I thought the match is going really well.
Okay. And that is a good take, unlike Calum's shit take, Matt. So good for you. All right. So fall number 2 starts up. They start with Flair firing up with chops until Wahoo takes quick control with a headlock. Wahoo with more stiff chops, then into a chinlock sleeper, but Flair gets to the ropes and Wahoo chops him over the top rope, which I thought was great. Flair pulls Wahoo partially out, rams his leg into the apron, and then to the steel post, which is a really great strategy to get Wahoo off his feet. Back in, he drops his knee and leg, draping on the rope, which is a really cool spot. He just keeps kicking the leg, and then he does a leg stretch into a figure 4. Graham continues to annoy me on commentary, and he keeps putting himself and his father over versus the match, so continues that trend here. Wahoo reverses, but Flair gets to the rope. Flair goes for the figure 4 again, but Wahoo blocks it with his hand, which I thought was a really cool way to block it. Flair gets on top of him and punches him and drops his knee to a head. Wahoo is now busted open, so we got both guys bleeding. Flair makes numerous pin attempts, but then hits the knee again for a few more 2 counts. Flair has a nice suplex for more 2 counts, then does an abdominal stretch. More chops and forearm exchanges. Wahoo tosses Flair into the ref. Wahoo backslides, but there's no ref, and with ref down, Flair takes Wahoo outside, tosses his head into the ring post. Flair then throws Wahoo into it again, then into the ring, drops a knee, and gets a 3 count with a knee drop. Another weird ending on the second fall. So we had the sleeper and then just kind of the knee and then pins him. And I actually thought the second fall was more anticlimactic than the first. So I will go to Calum first. What did you think of fall number 2?
We are wildly off here, Sean. I had the second fall was slightly better because Flair was on top.
Oh, I disagree.
Although to be fair, we were so far off in the first fall. We might actually.
Well, you're okay to be wrong. It's okay for you to be wrong. It happens.
Ooh, see, Calum is the secret weapon of our our 6-man tag team champion team here.
Calum and I very rarely disagree. This is the one we're going to disagree on, and it's okay. It happens. Matt and I disagree on everything, so it's okay.
Matt and you disagree on everything. You're agreeing so far on this one, so I think
we're in Bizarro world.
We are.
It really is.
I think we might be meeting each other on the second fall because I thought it was slightly better. You thought it was slightly worse, but we were so far off on the first fall that I think it was more about the ending. I thought. Listen, both endings were climatic.
I like more of that psychology work that was in the first fall, and you don't. You think it's boring. So there's a difference of opinion.
Yes. That's a nice way to put it. I did make a note on this one. Mike Graham, again, is saying, it feels like they've been in there for a week, and I couldn't agree more, and you're not helping, so shut the fuck up. But that's my only other note on the second fall.
All right. Matt, what'd you think of fall number 2?
Well, Sean, we're going to agree again because I also thought the second fall was much worse than the first fall. I actually thought the second fall was the worst of the 3 falls, to be honest. So.
Oh, Matt, that's amazing. We're agreeing.
Yeah, maybe I should hang up now and leave.
I might be
these
recruiting for a new permanent third member. We'll talk after the show.
Is this what all these mysterious monoliths are saying? All these things are showing up because Sean and Matt are going to agree on a podcast?
We
Sorry,
set it
Matt,
all,
go ahead.
we set it all up.
I knew this was going to be where we lost control, so keep going, Matt.
But, yeah, I don't know if Wahoo was doing a great job of selling or if he really was gassed, but I thought he was sucking wind for a lot of the second fall, and I kind of think that's why a lot of the second fall was really tentative. I mean, it goes like 10 minutes, and I feel like outside of chops and reversing pinfalls in the figure 4, that Wahoo really didn't do all that much in the 10 minutes. So like I said, I don't know if he was doing a great job of selling or if he really was completely out of gas. But yeah, second fall, I think the worst of the 3.
All right. Dr. G, bring us home on fall number 2.
Well, I agree with you guys. I didn't enjoy the second fall as much as the first fall.
Colin, you're all by yourself, buddy.
I had a funny feeling it was going to go this way.
But let me tell you, Matt, you're right. I could not figure out or is it Sean who said that I couldn't figure out who was winded, if Wahoo was really winded or if he was selling really well.
See, I thought he was selling really well. I didn't get the impression he was winded, but who knows? I don't know.
I thought the second fall it was kind of anticlimactic. Didn't really do much for me. I agree with Matt. Probably the worst of the 3 falls.
All right, so let's close it out. So we go to fall number 3. McDaniel is now a bloody mess. Wahoo blocks a Flair suplex and hits one of his own. Again, more chops. I guess we get Wahoo reverses a throw into the post, and then he throws Flair twice into the ring post. Flair is really bleeding now a lot. Wahoo chops, tosses Flair to the corner, and he tumbles outside. More chops by Wahoo as he starts firing it up, gets another sleeper. Flair kicks off the ropes and corners, falls back on Wahoo for the win. Wahoo thought he had won. So really quick, the third fall was really, really fast, and I thought it was great that it ended really quickly. I think they could have gone a little bit longer, but the match was so long already, so I'm glad they kind of went a little bit quicker in fall number 3. So with that, I will go. Let's just, as a match as a whole, let's rate it, give our final thoughts before we head over to Puerto Rico. So, Dr. G, I'll start with you. What did you think of the match as a whole?
I actually enjoyed the match. It was just one of those old school matches that the psychology. Obviously, the first fall obviously had the best psychology. The ending, again, we've seen that a lot in the NWA or the territory, so that wasn't totally shocking. I overall gave it a 3. I enjoyed it. I really did. I mean, it's Flair. I love watching Flair.
A little low for me, but I'll accept a 3.
But McDaniel would definitely did a better job than I expected going into watching this, because again, I did see this live, but I didn't remember all the details to it. This is the first time I watched it since that time. So
yep.
I gave it a 3. I enjoy it. Anytime I get a chance to watch Ric Flair, and it's just amazing how he went into every territory and just always, whoever he was facing, always made them look better. Now, McDaniel's not a bad wrestler, don't get me wrong, but he's not Ric Flair.
No,
And
this
Ric
was
Flair-
definitely the Ric Flair show making Wahoo look good. There's no doubt about it. It was great.
Exactly. So anytime I get to watch Ric Flair, so 3. I'm going to go 3 on it.
All right. Matt Souza, I'll go to you next. I'm going to save the worst for last, so go ahead.
So, my major problem with this match, and I like the match overall, but my big problem with it was that I just think 42 minutes was way too long for what they were going for here. I think if they
don't blame me. Yeah, I agree. It's long.
Particularly in the second fall. I think that second fall dragged. I mean, they could have the second fall was probably around 10 minutes long if I had to guess. I think if they cut that to, 5, I think you're looking at a tighter match and a better package overall. But I did like the match overall. I ended up going a little bit higher than Dr. G. I went 3.5 on it. So not quite classic, but kind of a hidden gem, I guess I would call it. So, but yeah, I liked it overall.
Okay, very good. So before I give my rating, I'm going to throw it over to Calum for the shit take of the night. So Calum, go ahead.
So, I think that this match, I can understand why they did it, why they wanted to do 2 out of 3 falls. I can I can find some logic in that. I can't find logic in why they made it 42 minutes. I think there was a very, very good 20, 25, even pushing it 30-minute match in there. It didn't need to go for the extra 15. Third fall, I've pointed out, it's always good to see the WrestleMania finish, the WrestleMania 8 finish, even if it was slightly less graceful. Considering when Flair pushed him off, and he just went down with a massive thud, and they were just like Wahoo was spooning him in the middle of the ring. Mm-hmm. If Flair can get a good match from a broomstick, what does that say about Wahoo in this match? Oh. He's not as good as a broomstick.
Oh, you son of a bitch!
This one did absolutely nothing for me. I'm sorry to say. If you guys can point me to more Wahoo stuff, I'm very willing to look at it and broaden my horizons a bit, because that's what this podcast for us
my heart is breaking right now.
To open up my mind.
Wow. So what'd you give the rating? What's your rating?
I gave it a solid. It was slightly different to you guys. I gave it a solid 1.75.
Holy shit! What?
I did not enjoy it at all.
Right.
As I say, I'm willing to learn. If you guys can point me in the direction of anything, or anybody listening, Chad, Scott, anybody can point me in the direction of
I think Chad Campbell
good Wahoo
get
stuff.
You with that score too. So when he listens to this, Chad, pipe in.
And Chad, if you can give me some suggestions on good Wahoo stuff, I am more than willing to go back and then revisit this after seeing some Wahoo. But at this point in time, seeing it from there, it did nothing for me, I'm afraid. Sorry, gents.
I think Chad's going to have a Sean Kidd sponsored stroke after he hears that.
Well, I already know Chad's a Wahoo fan, and he actually said after our last podcast he enjoyed me giving Calum shit about Wahoo. So anyway, here's my rating. I gave it 4 stars. And the reason why, and I get to 3, I get 3.5. I get why we all think it's too long. Even Calum, you're right. It could have been shorter, and I agree. But I thought the psychology was good in the first fall. I thought there's some stiff chops. I thought they worked well together. Flair made Wahoo look great, even though Wahoo's probably a little winded, a little not in Flair's class at this point in his career. But I thoroughly enjoyed this match. I gave it 4 stars. Colin McDougal was wrong, and Colin, I will forgive you for you being wrong one time on this podcast. Just don't let it happen again.
Well, I respect your opinion, Sean, and I respect why you think it was a much better match than it actually was. But that's why we have this hearty debate. This is why I got up. I stay up till 10.
Well,
this is why I stay up till 10 past 1 in the morning, Sean.
See, Dr. G, you've never been on a podcast with Sean when he gets really heated about stuff or starts throwing things at people. Like Matt hears it all the time. This is new for you. So this is not an uncommon thing that happens with me with people. It's just the way it is sometimes.
Callum McDougal playing the role of Matt Souza tonight.
Tonight, Calum McDougal, yes, playing the role of Matt Souza. So, but Calum, I respect your
Scott and I
opinion.
fight all the time, so. Yeah.
Well, yes. Like how Scott fights with you, that's how I usually am on every other pod I'm on. So anyway,
just say the 3 letters AEW and woof.
Lately, you could say NWA to him and get him the same way. So anyway, but all right. So Calum, I respect your opinion, and we'll move on because now we're going to move to a show that I believe we're all really going to shit on, and I'd be shocked if we did not. So we're going to go to Puerto Rico. It is World Wrestling Council's 5th anniversary show on September 21st. We're going to look at 3 matches here, and it's anyway. I don't know what else to say about it. So our first match we're going to look at is I call this the Matt Souza Classic. Has Jimmy Valiant facing Kamala, and the last time we saw Kamala was when he faced Magnum TA at the atrocious match at Great American Bash. So you have atrocious Kamala, and then you have the very atrocious Valiant. And the first thing I wrote in my notes before even watching this match is, who the hell in Puerto Rico thought this was a great idea to book Mid-Atlantic Jimmy Valiant against Kamala in Puerto Rico? I mean, let's really think about that and what we're doing. Like, out of all the Crockett people you could pull from, you pull Jimmy Valiant. So anyway, Valiant is out to the boy from New York City and bouncing around like an asshole like he always is. And he's flanked by children. And I did not know that Puerto Rico liked men with 12 kids and 6 hookers, because that's what he always claims he has. And then they give him his cake for his birthday. Thankfully, Kamala attacks him in the spot of the night. As he grabs the mic, Kamala starts beating Jimmy up as Jimmy starts convulsing, and that's his gimmick. The cake is destroyed as Kamala tries to use it, allowing Valiant to fight back, doing very valiant things, choking, thumbs, blah, 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 including punching Kamala in the balls, which I think is a new Jimmy Valiant move where he punches someone in the balls. Valiant is covered in cake and shaking. Kamala goes for a slam. Jimmy reverses it into a sleeper. Kamala grabs the ref, throws him into Jimmy, breaks it up, and for the DQ. So we have a DQ match, post-match. Kamala beats Valiant up with a stick as Valiant convulses violently. Valiant escapes, throws chairs in the ring. So Matt Souza, I'll go to you first.
Sean, I thought we were friends. Why would you do this to me?
Because Jimmy Valiant's the NWA. That's an NWA podcast.
That doesn't mean you have to pick him.
I did it because you were going to be on the show. I did it on purpose.
I know you did. I know you did.
So I had to do it.
Oh boy, was this bad. It goes, 2.5 minutes? It was 2.5 minutes I want back.
They flew Valiant to Puerto Rico for 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing, too, is even the fans in Puerto Rico don't like Jimmy Valiant because they're throwing things at him while he's in the ring. Like, it felt borderline dangerous to be in that crowd with everybody throwing things. Like, I think there was some liquid that flew into the ring at one point during this match. Yeah, this was complete and utter trash. This gets a big old dud from me.
And I agree. I went a big old fat dud on this one, too. All right. Calum, what do you think of Valiant versus Kamala?
Well, I'm glad that after the last match we watched the business picked up a wee bit. So I thought this was wonderful.
Good God Almighty!
No, I can't keep that up. I'm sorry. The one good thing about this, the first thing I saw was my first note is Fire Pro Cam, because obviously we get an isometric view. That was
yeah. The camera work in this show is pretty shitty.
that was the only good thing about it. If you love Jimmy Valiant convulsion selling, low blows, sleepers, and crap finishes, then this match is for you.
So a typical Valiant match.
Pretty much, yeah. And unfortunately, Kamala, not necessarily the guy you want in to carry the Boogie Woogie Man to a good match. I've got 0.5.
Think about this. Kamala's main eventing freaking Madison Square Garden with Hulk Hogan in a year from this. Think about that.
He was wrestling Andre the Giant in a cage match a year before this.
Yes, that's crazy. Wow. Unbelievable. You win wait, did you say a half star?
Yeah, because I thought that was the lowest we could go.
Can you could go a big
to
fat
0
nut on.
stars?
This might be the worst match we'll ever watch in the history of this pod in the next
Well,
3 years.
If we can go lower, if we can go lower than 0.5, I thought that was the bottom of the barrel we could go
you
to.
go big fat 0.
If we go a big fat 0, then I'll take some of that.
All right. Dr.
Even
G,
if you couldn't go lower than 0.5, I was still going 0.
We can't go negative?
well, you can.
I had a negative
Listen, you can
star.
do whatever you want. I mean, 0's about as bad as it gets. You can go as negative as you want, though.
Absolutely brutal. I mean, Kamala, the character is great and all that, but putting him with Valiant isn't good. And the crowd, like you say, Puerto Rico is tough. That's a tough place to wrestle in. They had no interest in Boogie Woogie, man. He was trying to get the crowd into it. I felt like they could care less, to be honest.
They gave him a
anything,
goddamn birthday cake in Puerto Rico. I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah, I almost wonder if that's why the match was so short, because they were kind of afraid that something was going to happen to him.
Yeah, because I think they like Kamala better, if that makes any sense.
Like in Puerto Rico at the time, they probably had razor blades in that cake. That's probably why he was bleeding out of the gate. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, there's nothing more to say there. It was horrible.
All right, so probably the worst match we'll ever watch, hopefully ever again in the history of this podcast. So it'll be hard to find one. But, of course, we have many more Valiant matches to watch, so it's quite possible. All right, we'll go to our second match, and then after the second match, we'll take a break, and then we'll go from there. So this is our fifth match of the night. The Road Warriors, again, taking on the Fabulous Ones. The Fabulous Ones come out to Jungle Love, which is a great 85 music, and I always thought the Fabulous Ones look awkward in their bow ties and gold jackets. For those of you that know the Fantastics, I feel like they're the precursor to the Fantastics. Animal and Kern start. Kern with a headlock gets knocked down by two Animal shoulder blocks. And he he takes Animal down with a leg drop. Hawk tags in. Kern with arm work tags in Lane, who keeps working arm. Hawk starts punching and kicking away. Ref moves him away. Animal drops Lane throat over the top rope. Warriors tag in and out, work over Lane with slam punches and headbutts. Let me turn the page here. Lane gets a tag to Kern, nails Animal with a forearm to face off rope. Off Foreman in the ring. Lane gets a drop kick on Hawk. Then they hit an elbow drop kick combo on Hawk. Sheepherders come out, and the Sheepherders and the Fabulous Ones had a really famous feud, so they're still feuding here. They come out and start fighting with them outside, and the Fabulous Ones get counted out as a fight to the back. So quick match. For my personal opinion is the Fabulous Ones got way too much offense on the Road Warriors, and now we have our second schmoz, our bullshit ending to a Road Warriors match tonight. I went 1 star. Dr. G, what did you think about this match?
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, the Fabulous Ones, because I used to watch a little bit of the Jerry Lawler's territory, and they were very, very hot.
Yes, I know they were hot, but
Tennessee.
Yeah, but they shouldn't have all that offense they got on the Road Warriors.
Not on the Road Warriors. No, I agree with you. I went 1 star as well. The match didn't really do much for me. I'm gonna be honest with you. This show did absolutely nothing for me.
Well, wait till we get to the main event, because whoa. Anyway,
yeah.
All right.
So yeah, now 1 star on that one.
All right, Calum, what'd you think?
My one and only note about the match is, well, the pre-match between the Fabulous Ones and Paul Ellering. I think he was rocking the kimono again here. We have a very fashionable match, not necessarily a good one.
Actually, you know what? I had a note about the kimono and I forgot to mention it. Thank you for mentioning it.
Oh, you're very welcome, Sean. I'm always here to help. Poor finish again. I put decent enough match, but now I think back on it, is that me just thinking it's decent enough compared to what we had before? Because I think I could have a decent match out in the back garden, and it's better than the Jimmy Valiant Kamala one we just watched. I've put 1 star, 1 star due to more content than Jimmy Valiant versus Kamala. But that's as much praise I think I can give it.
All right, we're 3 for 3 on the 1 star. Matt, bring us home on this one.
So first of all, neither of you mentioned that the Fabulous Ones came out to the ring to Jungle Love by the time, which popped me huge. Oh, that was fantastic. Oh, did you say it? I missed it. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that part.
You were still thinking about Jimmy Valiant and Kamala.
Yeah, because it was so bad, it's burned into my brain. But yeah, this match was nothing much. I mean, it almost felt like the Road Warriors kind of took a backseat to the Sheepherders and Fabulous Ones feud here.
Isn't that crazy?
And it felt like this match was only here to give the crowd a Road Warriors appearance, and that's it. I mean, the match, I think it goes like 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. So I went a star by default, basically, just because it was a match and it was better than the previous one.
All right, so we have one match left. Before we get to that match, we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about the final 4 matches, our final Flair match, the main event with Flair in Puerto Rico. Then we'll move on to SuperClash for the 3 title matches we have over there. So we'll be back on the other side. Stay tuned. Place to Be Nation, welcome back to our second half of episode 6 of NWA Crock and Roll, our September Super Show special. This is Sean Kidd. I'm here with Calum McDougal, Matt Souza, and Dr. G, and we are still in Puerto Rico, and we are about to go to our main event of the World Wrestling Council main event of the their 5th anniversary show. So our match is for the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Nature Boy Ric Flair, facing Hercules, how do you say, is it Aila, I guess? I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. So just some context. A lot of you might remember Hercules, he had a huge feud with Carlos Colon in in '87 to the point of where they actually had a loser leaves town match in '89. It was a really like huge, big deal, bloody feud. If you ever read the Aftermags back in the day, they covered this like in depth. Lots of blood, lots of like to the point they had a point in this feud where Hercules actually attacked Colon's wife at a banquet. Like this is a big super feud. So this is 2 years before that. The other big shocking thing in this is 6 months ago, prior to this match taking place, Hercules defeated the Macho Man Randy Savage for the World Wrestling Council North American Championship. So Hercules holds a victory over 85 Randy Savage, and I think that was right before Randy. I'm not sure when the timing was when Randy left for the World Wrestling Federation, but this guy Hercules Aila, or however you pronounce it, beat Savage. So kind of a big deal. So it is kind of a main event for the World Wrestling Council. So I don't feel it's that way as I watched the match, and I'm sure you guys will have some thoughts too, but I'll jump right into it. So Flair comes out in his yellow robe, and he comes out to a song called He's a Champion by Corey Hatch. Is anybody familiar with that song? Dr. G, do you even know that song?
I don't know that song at all, to be honest.
All right. Matt Souza, you're a music guy. Do you know this song?
Absolutely not.
All right, good. So we're off to a great, fantastic start. Colin McDougall, I assume you don't know this song either, right?
Yeah, it's Ric Flair's theme song in Puerto Rico.
All right.
That's a great point.
He's on tonight.
Calum is on tonight. He is on his game. So Flair gets off. This is bad. This is really not a great promo. It's again, we get these mid-'80s promos that culturally don't hold up very well. This will be one of them. Flair tells everyone to shut up and pay attention. Says no doubt as world champion he will retain. It's what he wants the people to get on their hands and knees. And then he asks him if you speak English. And I'm like thinking to myself, he's going to get himself killed when he leaves this ring. He says, girls show up, he will make women out of all of them. These words could kill you in Puerto Rico, I said. Says women of Puerto Rico are starved for a real man, the world champion. So, Dr. G, we typically love Ric Flair promos. What do you think about this promo he just cut in Puerto Rico? One, talking about not speaking English, and two, telling the men of Puerto Rico that they're starved for a real man. How do you feel about that?
This is typical Ric Flair, but he's crazy because they are nuts there. Let me tell you something. I don't know how he got out of that building that night, but boy, they must have had to hide him in the laundry basket or something like that. I can't even imagine he got out of there with how he got out of there. He had to have some security or something because I'm telling you, those fans are crazy down there.
Insult the language
really
and insult the men. Unbelievable.
And, I mean, it's great heel heat, but I don't know if it would be too smart. Yeah, I don't know if I'd be doing that in Puerto Rico, but that was Ric Flair. That's what made him great.
All right. Colin, what did you think of Flair's short little promo pre-match?
I thought it was excellent. I don't know if he actually realised the amount of danger he was putting himself in, but it was wonderful. It was Ric Flair to a T.
Yep, I agree. Matt, what'd you think?
Ric Flair has bigger balls than me. I'll say that. Because, I mentioned it during the Jimmy Valiant Kamala match that I've been forced to go back to. But there's a certain amount of dangerousness to this show and in this crowd that, like you mentioned, Flair must have needed security detail to get out of this building on this night because, boy.
Yeah, I think Flair definitely had some balls here. I think you said it very well there. So the match starts, and again, as always, it starts with Flair taunting. They hook up. Hercules powers Flair in the corner out of the lockup. Second lockup ends with a shoulder tackle by Hercules. I'm going to call him Hercules because I can't pronounce his last name. Test of strength was run by Hercules. That puts Flair to his knees, broken by the ropes. They hook up. They leads to a leg headlock by Flair. To Flair by Hercules. Flair gets out, chops Hercules, but he hits back, knocking Flair down. Flair gets some shoulder blocks and chops that Hercules reverses and punches and gives him a big backdrop. More chops and punch exchanges leads to a Hercules press slam. Flair gets choked at corner but nails Hercules in the balls with his knee. Flair follows up with punches, chops, and knee drops for 2 counts into an arm bar. Long arm work by Flair at 10-minute mark. So long arm work Flair at the 10-minute mark. More chops and punches until Hercules reverses a throw to turnbuckle where Flair hits the shoulder. And now Hercules with long arm work. I mean, it's just such a boring match. Hercules with more punches and chops, kicks with Flair, Flair comes back, and it goes back and forth, leads to Flair being thrown in the corner over the top rope. Hercules beats Flair up outside, and Flair, of course, is bleeding as always. Back in the ring, Hercules bites Flair's hair and punches him some more, gets a sleeper on Flair. Flair gets foot on the ropes for the break. And again, there's more punching, there's more backdropping. We'll speed to the end. Hercules hits a kick to stomach to Flair, then sends him out to the ring apron, goes for a suplex, but Flair grabs the rope to fall on top for the slowest 3 count I ever saw. The last 5 minutes I thought were okay. I thought the rest was a boring slogfest of punches and rest holds, and Hercules didn't show me anything, and I am shocked as hell this guy has a pinfall victory over Randy Savage and has also the hottest feud ever in Puerto Rico. So anything good in this match was all Flair. I gave it a 1.75 stars. So, Dr. G, what did you think of this match?
I gave it a 1.5. Flair is known to try to make anyone look good. And again, if it wasn't for Flair being in this match, I probably would be negative stars because Hercules did nothing for me. Flair he's the one that brings out the best in everyone, but I don't know. I don't think there was much he could do here, to be honest. So, yeah.
Okay.
I gave it 1.5, and I'm kind of being nice. I'm being nice because Flair was in the match. That's basically why they got the 1.5.
I give it what is known in podcast circles as the gentleman 1.75. I could go 1.5 very easily. So, Matt Souza, what'd you think?
Yeah, I'm a skosh higher than you. I went 2 on it because I actually thought the opening 5 minutes were actually decent when they used the chops and punches and press slams for the first time. It was the remaining 6 or 7 times they repeated that spot were the problem. But I thought the opening 5 minutes were good and the last 5, like you mentioned, Sean, were really good. But that middle portion where they're just working on the never-ending arm lock, it just killed any flow that match had. So, like I said, I went 2 on it, and Hercules.
Wow, you were nice on that one.
his punches kind of reminded me of like late stage Pedro Morales, like how he throws his punches, and even like his mannerisms and how he got like his baby face pops and all that. Kind of reminded me of a Pedro Morales, but which, from my perspective, isn't really great. But
it's a great comparison.
But yeah, I went 2 stars again, probably because of Ric Flair.
All right. Calum, what'd you think?
Well, I went into this one reasonably looking forward to seeing it because, as you say, Hercules had this bloody feud with Carlos Colon, and anything that I've heard of Puerto Rico wrestling, it's always like it's bloody, it's wild. So I was expecting, because like Flair can bleed a gusher with the best of them, so I was expecting this to be a bit bloody and a bit wild, and it was not. It was almost the polar opposite. As Matt said, you could fit most of the match on a GIF, and then just repeat it 6 or 7 times, and then you get to the final. I have put that the last 5-10 minutes is good, but the ending was a bit flat. It was. I've gone 2 as well. But it could easily have gone lower. Most of it is because it was Ric Flair.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, here's a good thing. I think though we've now had 2 Ric Flair title matches where we've seen Ric Flair get pinfall victories. So we're not getting cheap DQs or anything in these world title matches. So that's one part of it I do like. We're seeing Flair being the traveling champion. We saw him at Florida. We saw him in Puerto Rico. That'll end our watch on a Puerto Rico show, thank God. And we're going to move on. So before I move on, we're going to talk about the other matches that were on this show. And I'm sure it's not going to add much excitement, but I did want to run down the rest of the card like we did with Florida. So we had, and I'm sure many of these wrestlers you've all heard of. Chicky Star defeated Don Greer in a boxing match. Jesse Barr, who would go on to be Jimmy Jack Funk in the World Wrestling Federation, defeated Medic #1. Sweet Brown Sugar defeated Dory Funk Jr., who we all know. Miguel Perez Jr. defeated World Wrestling Council Puerto Rican champion Eric Embry via countout. And then the final match that we did not watch. I'm sorry, there's 2 matches. Invader 1 and Invader 3 defeated the Sheep Herders in a barbed wire match, which I'm sure was probably way better than anything we probably watched here tonight. And then Austin Idol defeated Ruby Hernandez. So, real quick, Dr. G, going around the horn, does that whole card really make you want to watch this show?
No. It does nothing for me. Was there an anniversary show for 6?
Yeah, they have it. There's like 9 or 10. They're all over. They're all on YouTube. I just watched this one. So
is there? Because I think they should have stopped right there. To be honest with you,
yeah,
this one.
5's a good solid number, right? You made it to 5 years. So.
Quit while you're ahead. Move on because no, I did not enjoy that show at all.
Calum, any of those main event matches resonate with you?
I have a mild curiosity for the Invaders against the Sheep Herders, but that's probably it. A bit of blood and guts there, I think.
Well, Invader 1 has is very famous for other reasons, by the way. Which
I was going to say he does allegedly like some blood and guts himself.
Yes, exactly. So we'll move on quickly from that, and Matt Souza.
Yes, I mean, outside of the barbed wire match, there's nothing there I'd really be interested in seeing. So.
Yeah, so I think it's safe to say that, and we'll talk about it at the end of the show. You don't have to go out of your way to watch this one, but I don't want to ruin an ending for everybody. So anyway, now we're going to shift gears. We're going to leave Puerto Rico, and we're going 7 days later. We're going to Comiskey Park in Chicago, 20,347 people. To SuperClash 1, and this is co-promoted by the AWA, and this is everything we've really watched tonight has been part of what they called Pro Wrestling USA, and this was really formulated by Crockett and Gagne, where some of the territories worked together to kind of battle against Vince McMahon as he was building his little co-op. Pro Wrestling USA reminds me a lot, and the boss is going to kill me for this. Reminds me a lot of what AEW is trying to do right now. You know, recently they're trying to go after Impact. They've had a little of NWA in there. They have a working agreement with AAA. It almost feels a lot like this a little bit. So I'll apologize to the boss now so he doesn't fire me after making that AEW comment, because the context of it, it's good that we have.
Oh, don't let him scare you.
Here we go with Sean in context again. We've all heard that.
Yes. Hey, Paul Jones is still great, Matt. So anyway, we're going to go. So anyway, this was co-promoted by Gagne and Crockett, and this was really what led to the dispute in the Pro Wrestling USA breaking apart, and kind of stopped that relationship between the NWA and the AWA is the payoff for this. It turned into a big dispute. However, in October, we did get some really cool matches out of Japan involving the AWA and the NWA, but that's in October. So the first match we're going to look at, actually, you know what? Let's go down the card of this one before we go into our other matches. So here's the rest of the card on this. And again, this is all found on YouTube. Steve Regal defeated Brad Reagans for the AWA World Light Heavyweight Championship. And no, that is not Lord Steven Regal. That's Mr. Electricity Steve Regal. Sherry Martel defeated Candy Devine for the AWA World Women's Championship. Mil Mascaras defeated Buddy Roberts of the Freebirds for the IWA World Heavyweight Championship. Greg Gagne, Scott Hall, Kurt Hennig defeated Ray Stevens, Nick Bockwinkel, and Larry Zbyszko in a 6-man match. Little Tokyo defeated Little T for the NWA World Midgets Championship. Dr. G, any recollection of the NWA World Midgets Championship?
That was definitely made up for this show because I never heard of it.
All right. Jumbo Sharuda, Giant Baba, and Tenru defeated Harley Race, Bill Irwin, and Scott Irwin, which was a match they called for the 6-man Asian Tag Team Championship, which I also believe was made up for this pay-per-view, or whatever this show was. Kerry Von Erich pinned Jimmy Garvin for the World Class Texas Championship. Jerry Blackwell defeated Kamala, so we had another Kamala appearance in a body slam match for $10,000. Jerry Blackwell and Kamala went almost 10 minutes in that match. Holy shit. Sergeant Slaughter defeated Boris Zukov by DQ for the AWA Americas Championship, and Rick Martel and Stan Hansen fought to a double disqualification for the AWA World Heavyweight Championship in a match that only lasted 2.5 minutes. So those are the other matches that were on this card. And I got to say, I don't know about you guys, but on paper, looking at this card, this is a pretty freaking solid card. Dr. G, what do you think about the card besides what we're going to watch here?
There's some great wrestlers there. I mean, some of the way to highlight your AWA Heavyweight Championship. I mean, and the ring had the AWA logo in it, so
20,000 fans, man. Think about that in 85 AWA. That's insane.
That is insane. But they did have the card very full. When we get to the Ric Flair match, I'll have a little commentary about that. What the commentary was from the announcers there. I'll go more into that. But it's one of those cards where you look at the guys that are on this card, you're like, wow, this could be a good one. The Blackwell Kamala match, that's what we call the take a dump match when you go to the bathroom. That's what we used to call it when we will be watching the pay-per-views. It's the take the dump match.
Well, it gives you plenty of time. It gives you 10 minutes, unlike Valiant Kamala that gave you like 2 minutes. So at least.
Yeah, exactly. So.
All right.
That's you could ask the boss that one. I think he probably coined that, not me. So
that's awesome. All right, Calum, what do you think of the card and how the card sounds on paper?
Yeah, I agree with you. It sounds like there's a lot of stuff on there that I think I would seek out and watch. Martel and Stan Hansen going. What did you say they went 2.5 minutes?
Yeah, Martel and Hansen only went 2.5 minutes. That was the main event of the show.
Yeah, that just seems like a waste. I mean, that could have been excellent. But for 2.5 minutes, it's just like what's the point? It's almost as if you just wanted to, like the old school WrestleManias, get everybody on, but you don't have a get everybody on the card 2.5 minute filler match where you're heavyweight champion. But no, there's a few things on there. What was the 6-man you said with Scott Hall and Kurt Hennig? That sounded quite good as well.
Yeah, they were taking on Scott Hall, Kurt Hennig, and Greg Gagne against Ray Stevens, Bachwiegel, and Zbyszko, which probably was pretty good actually. That sounds like it could be fun. So there's definitely a lot of matches on here that I would seek out and watch. All right. And Matt, what'd you think?
Yeah, it's a pretty loaded show on paper, and as far as Stan Hansen and Rick Martel going 2 minutes to end the night, it had to be something related to like a curfew or something, right? I mean, that would be my only guess as to why that went 2.5 minutes. I mean, I can't imagine it was originally booked to go that short.
I'm sure it was Hansen being Hansen. Hansen was pretty volatile back in '85, so I'm sure it had something to do with him. All right, so now we're going to talk. So now that's that card. So again, this whole card is available on YouTube, and actually, if you go on YouTube, it's broken up into each match, so you don't really have to watch the whole show if there's one match you want to go back and watch. But we're going to start off with our matches. So we have 3. Our first match is for the NWA 6-man tag team titles. It's the Crusher, the Bruiser, and Rashke versus the Russians, and I coined this the old folks home versus the Russians for the 6-man tag team titles. I said the faces look like they are walking to breakfast at the nursing home after leaving the pill line. That was my opening line when I wrote this. Ivan says we are the 6-man champs. When it's over, our hands will be raised. Crusher says they are legends. We will put them down in front of the Americans. And I always laugh at Crusher being a Russian because he is the most un-Russian Russian I have ever seen in my life or talk like. Nikita says all stinky Americans go down. So I feel like Nikita says this in every promo. All go down. Larry Nelson strokes out. Larry Nelson, of course, very famous alcoholic and solo commentator for the AWA. So this is a pretty entertaining one-man commentary show for the most part. Crowd hates the Russians as they taunt and hold up the Russian flag. Match starts with all 6 men brawling. Once things settle down, the Russians get Crusher in the corner. Ivan already has blood on his head, and Crusher gets advantage on Khrushchev, tags in Baron, who gets pushed to Russian's corner but fights them all off. Nikita no-sells his punches and pushes them off, which is great. The crowd, big, huge chance of USA. Nikita pushed Baron away a few more times and kisses his pecs. So Nikita loving himself tonight. Then he puts Baron in a headlock. He goes for a shoulder block, but Baron stands firm. So the fact that 80-year-old Baron von Raschke got a shoulder block for Nikita and didn't fall is pretty amazing to me. Nikita goes off the ropes again. Baron holds his hand up for the claw, and Nikita cowers in fear from the 80-year-old Raschke's claw. Ivan tagged in, knocks Baron down, but Ivan gets backdropped, and Baron hits an awful-looking knee off a rope throw. Then he tags in Bruiser, who punches away at Ivan and throws him into the turnbuckle several times. There's a test of strength. Later on, Crusher they tag in Baron. Baron gets a knee to the gut and goes back into a chin lock. Crusher powers out of the chin lock. There's another rope throw. Baron shoulders him down. Crusher gets up and hits a shoulder breaker. Ivan misses a charge and hits his testicles on the rope, unfortunately. Crusher then elbows. Crusher tags. And then, anyway, this is just such a mess. Bruiser tagged in, does nothing, then tags Baron, who drops a leg. Crowd cheers a goose step and a claw. So when Baron does his claw, he does a goose step, which really doesn't hold up culturally. It looks bad in mid-80s culture. Baron gets a claw. Crusher goes to top rope to break it up, but Crusher knocks him down and crotches himself on the ropes. All 6 men are fighting as Baron has Ivan and claw. And then we actually miss what happens. The camera doesn't really see what happens as all the fighting's going on. But then we flash back to Ivan getting the 3 count. So I don't really know what happened because the camera caught it. This was really chaotic. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but I went 1.5 stars. I thought I call them Team Cocoon. I feel like they got too much offense. So I will go to Calum first. What did you think of Team Cocoon versus the Russians?
Okay. First of all, I pointed out the strange dynamic that they had on the Soviet side. You had an American who's a Russian sympathizer, defending the honour of Mother Russia, and a former Nazi defending America's honour. It was quite a strange turn of events there.
Yeah, a former Nazi who's goose stepping, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I don't think anyone needs to point out that the last time that somebody cheered, the last time there was a reaction to that for a goose step.
Yes.
I don't understand why Baron. Well, sorry, I do kind of understand, having seen how the match went, why Baron von Raschke carried the match for his team, because the other 2 were rubbish as well. When the most notable thing that the commentary said was that you had to point out that 2/3 of the men in the match were bald. You really know that nothing's happening in the ring, and I felt really bad because I've enjoyed, and I think we've all enjoyed the Russians on Crockett, and I think I've said before that Ivan. I thought that Ivan might have been past it in 1985, considering that he'd been around a while and he'd been the WWF champion. However many 15 years before that, you thought he might be past it, but my God, he still had more in his pinky finger than the other 3 combined on the other team had. I felt so bad that they were having to sell and try and get a decent match out of the 3 geriatrics that were across the ring to them. I put 0.5 star.
Wow.
It was really bad.
A lot of old shaming going on in this match. Shame on us. Anyway, Matt, go ahead.
Well, speaking of old shaming.
Yeah, exactly.
Given who was involved, I thought it was fairly energetic. I mean, when you look at this on paper and you see the Russians on one side, you know they're going to bring the goods. But then you see Team Orthopedic Shoe on the other side. I mean, you
How
probably...
many names can we come up with that team tonight?
I mean, at least for me, I was kind of expecting a dud when I saw this match on paper. But yeah, I think the energy was decent enough, and they kept a decent enough pace, I suppose. I mean, I only went a star on it, but I mean, when you're fully expecting a dud and you go a star on a match, I think it over-delivered, which is weird to say about a match I gave a star. But
no, I get it. I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So.
Okay, Dr. G, what'd you think?
Okay, let's put this in perspective, guys. Now, Ivan Koloff at this time, 43 years old. Okay, think about Chris Jericho, who's going to be 50. Okay. The other guy,
I'll take 43 Ivan over 50 Jericho.
And Baron Von Raschke's only 45.
Good Lord.
No,
wow.
That can't be true.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Look it up. Look it up. And
no, I
Dick
believe
Bruiser,
you. Holy cow, that's crazy.
Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher, they're only in their late 50s.
Well,
Think about that. Jerry Lawler's still wrestling now at 70.
Well, Vern Gagne wrestled until he was like 90, didn't he?
I mean, but it's just amazing. You know, we talk about this all the time. It's like how, you know, guys we thought were so old, and then some of them were in their late 30s, and we're thinking they're so old. And then you have guys like AJ Styles, who's in his early 40s, going. We don't think of him in his early 40s. It's just weird how, you know, ages have changed in terms of. But that I just wanted to put that in perspective because I had to look that up when I was watching it because I'm like, how old were these guys at this time? And I agree with Matt. When you expect something that's going to be totally awful and it had a little more energy than expected, I went 1 star as well. But it definitely wound up being a little more entertaining than I expected. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't something I gave it 1 star, but it was better than I thought. Let's put it that way for who was involved. But again, I thought those guys were older than they were. So that just put that in perspective. So I had to look up their ages just to see, you know, when I think, you know, like guys like Ivan Koloff and even Baron Von Raschke are younger than I am now. And
I would agree with you guys. It's way better. It's way better than it should have been. I mean, I was the highest. I think I went 1.5 on it. I think I said earlier. So I didn't think it was that bad. I actually thought it was very energetic for who was in it, to your point. So it's probably a little high, but it's probably because I thought it was better than I had any right to be. So very interesting matchup, though. Very interesting. So, all right. Our second match is for our third Road Warriors match. AWA Tag Team titles, the Road Warriors versus the Freebirds. And let's really put this in the context of the Road Warriors. So we have seen in this the Road Warriors face the Russians at the match. They faced Race and Hansen. They faced the Fabulous Ones, and now they're facing the Freebirds. It's like the Warriors are on a roll of the who's who's of the mid-'80s tag teams, and they are like, it's like Flair's a true world champ. These guys are like the true world tag team champions. So this is really cool, I think. So the Birds come out. They're in Rebel face paint. Hayes says all the world wants to see was the best. The South is going to do it again. Buddy says something about everyone will find out what Freebird sanitation is all about, which I didn't really understand the context of that. The Warriors bypass Larry Nelson, and they walk to the ring, and then, of course, it breaks out into a huge brawl, and Warriors take Freebirds out, and the crowd's just going bonkers. Larry, I thought, did a nice job setting up how big this match is in retrospect. Again, like I said, it's really crazy that how many teams the Warriors have faced since July, just some big names. Hayes jumps out of the ring, and then he paces in front very angrily, stating he's yelling at him. Then he gets back into the ring. Terry and Hawk Terry, Gordy, and Hawk face off. Hawk hits a clothesline, punches and kicks. Knee to the face. Gordy tags in Hayes. Hawk elbows Hayes off the ropes. Turnbuckle shots. Animal and Gordy tag in. Big Hoss feel like Gordy and Animal. That just feels like a big Hoss fight. Animal flips Gordy over a turnbuckle. Throws clubs to his chest and a body slam. Hawk tags in and hits a punch from second rope. Hayes tags in as Roberts and Paul look like they're about to go at it outside. Hayes gets a headlock on Hawk and shoulder tackle off the ropes. Gets clubbed on a sunset flip attempt. Hawk and Animal take turns ping-ponging Hayes with elbows, which I thought was a great spot with headbutts, punches, and elbows. Gordy reluctantly tags Hayes in. Hawk and Gordy tie up, and Hawk throws Gordy to the corner. Gordy moves on a Hawk charge, and Hawk hits the steel post, and then Gordy with a suplex, and he's really proud of himself. Hayes comes in, tries to work over Hawk, but Hawk fights him into the turnbuckle, but he reverses it, and Hayes hits the turnbuckle 3 times, but Hayes elbows his way out of it and hits a side slam on Hawk. We'll go later into the match. Hayes comes off the ropes and hits Animal to break the pin. The ref turns around. Gordy gets a shocking 3 count. So what led up to that is Animal pinned Gordy, but the ref got distracted. So Hayes actually came off the rope and hit Animal. And there was a shocking, like when I saw, like I don't remember this match. When I saw that the Road Warriors got pinned here, I was legit shocked because I don't ever remember hearing about that. And the announcers announced the Freebirds as the new tag team champions. And people are throwing trash. The Warriors stand in the ring and they're pissed. Nelson has a mic in his hand as the crowd screams what happened. The Birds are the new champs. Vern is out, of course, and ruins all the party and wants a replay on the Sports Vision video, which he calls it. The decision is suddenly worse on replay. Reverse. The Road Warriors retain. I really thought overall this match was a super fun brawl. I hated the reversal at the end, so now we got 3 Schmaz Road Warrior ending matches tonight. I thought it was a 3-star fight. Like this one and the Battle of the Belts match, I thought were really fun, cool brawls. So I went 3 stars on this. So, Dr. G, what'd you think?
I agree. I went 3 stars as well because 2 great teams here, and you gotta love the little interview with Michael Hayes. He's obviously a better guy in the mic than he is in the ring, but because he's so mouthy, and Terry Gordy is the best of that team.
Just a hoss.
He is a hoss. He really is, and I love watching the Road Warriors, so that goes without saying. But they did that stuff in the AWA all the time. They did that whole stuff with Hogan back in '83. Against Bockwinkel, he'd win the AWA championship. No, we're taking it away from you from some kind of technicality. And, they kind of did that in all the territories back then, which, you could get away with them because you didn't have the internet. You didn't have, the smart fans, as you want to call them. Word didn't get around as much. But, the ending actually kind of probably kept it from me giving a 3.5 stars, to be honest. Because I really enjoyed it. I just love watching those 2 classic teams go at each other. Good brawl, and at that time, those are the 2 teams you would like to see in the ring with each other. I mean, the Freebirds were pretty hot at that time.
Well, they both were hot. Yeah. Mid-'80s Freebirds and Road Warriors, that's a hot matchup, man.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. So, 3 stars. We're agreeing tonight on that.
Yeah, going into it, I didn't think it was going to be that great because neither one of these teams are known for like 3+ star matches, so it was great. So, Calum, what'd you think of Road Warriors versus Freebirds?
I thought it was, I thought it was great. My first note is when the Freebirds, and I've seen I think this is the interview before. It's quite a famous picture. But my first note is Whoa Nelly. That's a lot of Confederate flags. We're certainly not in 2020. You wouldn't see that today.
No, this is not a culturally sound show.
No, far from it.
Yeah.
I liked it, as you said. I liked it when Gordy was in. Big E would have loved it, and I know I'm going to get a funny look when I say this, but it was your typical big burly men slapping meat. It was excellent. They were just two big guys just thrown down. It was wonderful to watch. What was that? Yeah, Animal press slam on Gordy was really impressive because
I skipped over that, but it was great.
It looked as if he was struggling with it, and then all of a sudden he finds some strength somewhere and puts him like right up. It was superb. I didn't expect the ending. I like Vern trying to get all hip and modern by using his instant replay on his whatever vision he said it was. I somewhat get it because you're in Comiskey Park and you've got the use of the big jumbotron. I understand you might want to try and tie that in some way, shape or form, because it's there. But it did take away from the ending a bit. I wasn't too far off you guys. I've got it at 2.75, but I thought I really enjoyed it up until Vern tried to reverse the decision.
Yeah, Vern ruins everything. Anyway, all right, Matt, what did you think?
Yeah, I'm in line with Calum, actually. I went 2 3/4 on this, too. I thought Gordy was the star of this match. I thought he did a great job selling all the Road Warriors offense. I mean, he was throwing himself
by the way,
around
I
the
think
ring.
he's in his early 20s at this point. I know
Yeah,
he's not too old at all. So.
That's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But I thought he was the star of this match with him, throwing himself around for every single thing that the Road Warriors were doing to him. The finish hurts it for me, like it did for all you guys. But it was a typical AWA finish, so I mean it's not all that surprising. But really, really fun tag match with a poor finish, and I think with a better finish, I would have gone at least 3 on this for sure.
Listen, the sad part about it is Terry Gordy. I mean, I know he had fame in Japan. I know he was in the UWF. I mean, this guy in the WWF with a marketing machine behind him, Terry Gordy could have been a huge freaking star. Could you imagine, like, WWF promoted Gordy against Hulk Hogan in the 80s? It would have been amazing. So
Well, don't you remember when he was the executioner for that match with Undertaker?
In 96, yes. December of 96, Terry Gordy was in bad shape already, unfortunately. So
he wouldn't have anywhere to fit in because they had to have that big money 3-match feud with Kamala next year.
Yeah, and by the way, the Freebird's very big because they opened up one of the greatest movies ever in Highlander. So at Madison Square Garden. So, Calum, I'm sure you could appreciate that, right?
Oh, of course. the wonderful movie with what was it? A Scotsman playing a Spaniard and a Frenchman playing a Scotsman.
Yeah. Should have had Drew McIntyre in the starring role, right?
Oh, I mean, you might as well just cancel the Oscars right enough because there's not going to be no movie that'd be better than that.
There's only one Freebirds.
That's awesome. All right, so now we're going to go to our third match of the night, which, again, this was kind of like I must have tuned this SuperClash show out of my head because I didn't have any recollection of the Road Warriors and Freebirds. The 6-man match I thought was a cool little thing, but Flair versus Magnum TA, which is a world title match, which we never got when we started this podcast back looking at April of '85. They were building to Flair TA, and it built over a few months. And the only payoff we ever really got out of that was a 10-minute match on TBS. So here this is a 19-minute long match with Flair versus TA at an AWA event for the world title. And at this point in time, TA is not even really feuding with Flair. At this point, his feud with Tully is really starting to heat up, which we go into later in the month of September on our next watch in October. But so this is kind of an out of nowhere world title match, which is kind of, for me, a pleasant surprise because we never really got that big, huge payoff that we were looking for during this world title match. So, Flair with his third televised title defense this month. And here's the other crazy thing, guys. In 2 days from this show, he's in Memphis facing Jerry Lawler for the NWA title. So he has gone from Florida. He went to Puerto Rico to Chicago. In 2 days, he's going to be in Memphis to face Lawler. And it just goes to show that, when people always debate Hulk Hogan versus Flair as a world champion, you want to go real world champion. There's no doubt it's Ric Flair. So this month of September and then what you see in October and November proves it, no doubt about it. So TA says he told Flair I wasn't over with him, so nice little callback there. Says he'll get the 1, 2, 3 with the belly-to-belly suplex. Flair comes out, and Nelson tells him what TA said. Flair is in his green robe, says, I don't think there's a doubt in anyone's mind that when the champ is in town, he will take care of business. When you are Ric Flair, you dictate when the bell rings. So really cool, short promos. I liked TA's throwback to that him and Flair aren't done yet, even though he's kind of moved on. And then, of course, Flair is always great no matter how long of promo time you give him. And this is kind of a big-time feel here as we saw – the only thing we saw, like I mentioned earlier, was that 10-minute match we saw on TV a few months back. But this match we have waited for, and I was so excited to go into this. And this is like for me, May, June, July, August. This is the match I've been waiting to watch for the last 5 months since we started this show. So Nelson makes a comment that he likes their boots. Mat wrestling to start leads to a standoff. There's more mat wrestling. Exchanges leads to a TA hammerlock. And TA need an arm. TA works the arm on a hammer wrist lock combo. Flair gets away on a rope break. There's a test of strength. Flair gets the upper hand, but TA powers out of it and drops Flair to mat with an arm bar. Nelson continues to really mark out over the boots, so I'm sure he's had a few drinks at this point. Nelson discuss a possible match between AWA champion Martel and Flair to get one world champion. And kind of a peek under the tent, guys, when we get to October, we will actually see that match. So we'll definitely talk about that later on down the line. Flair throws TA to the rope, but TA knocks him down with a shoulder block. There's a nice crisscross across the ring where TA hits a hip toss and drop kick, then a press slam as Flair begs off. Flair gets a knee to gut and chop, punches TA, another corner reversal, and TA backdrop Flair. Goes back to arm and hammerlock. Later on in the match, Flair has a chop and snapmare, knee to a head, and then a knee to a gut, a butterfly suplex for 2, and then into an abdominal stretch. Ref breaks the abdominal stretch after he catches Flair pulling on the trunks. Flair beats on TA in the corner with chops, and then misses a knee drop, and TA gets his own figure 4. I like how this is sold as far as it being locked in. It was a really good selling by Flair, and on TA with it being in the hold. They get a rope break, and TA pulls him back to the center of the ring. Flair headbutts TA to the gut, which I thought was pretty cool, and then TA reverses a suplex for 2. TA backslide for another 2. Flair pokes TA in the eyes and then throws TA outside. Later on in the match, TA gets a body slam and a splash attempt, and Flair gets knees up at the 20-minute mark. So we are really flying through this. Flair gets an atomic drop to the leg on TA in a figure 4. I always loved Flair when he would atomic drop someone on his knee to his knee. It always looked really vicious. TA reverses a figure 4, but Flair gets to the ropes, goes for another figure 4, but TA gets a small package for 2. Both go punch for punch. TA gets the corner throw. Flair over the top rope falls to the floor. Nelson is confused on commentary as he thought it was a DQ, but says Flair pulled himself over the top rope. So, and then I made a comment about Larry to have some more vodka because he was very confused on that spot. TA goes outside after Flair, throws Flair into steel post. Flair is busted open as TA punches him in the corner, and then more in the middle of the ring. TA gets a 2 count. More punches to Flair's head, a backdrop for another 2. Flair gets on top of TA for several 2 counts, but TA bridges up. There's a backslide on Flair for 2.5. He gets a belly to belly, but Flair's legs hit the ref. And I said hit sarcastically because the ref really he stinks as TA covers, but the ref he barely hit the ref. And he gets 2, but we really should have hit a 25 count, and the ref is just overselling. TA gets a roll up for a pin, but Flair rolls backwards, pulling the trunks for a 3 count on Magnum TA. Wow. I mean, this match was back and forth. I really, really love this match, but I want to go around to hear what you guys think about it before I talk about what I think. So, Dr. G, you go first. What did you think?
To me, the match of the evening. This match I enjoyed. It was a classic Ric Flair match, but Magnum really worked well with Flair. Obviously, Flair just makes everybody look better than they are, but Magnum really, we were very critical of him when we started doing this podcast, but he's starting to grow on me now. I mean, he's putting on some really good matches. I would say with him, I never really totally doubted his wrestling skills. It was more his mic skills, which are, we're getting better as we're going along. But what I love is again the psychology in this match, which was awesome. I mean, which with Flair it always is. And the one thing that I noticed in some of the commentary was how they did talk about the NWA World Title, but they had to make sure to mention Rick Martel and the AWA World Title. I don't know if anybody caught on that.
Yeah, because they were talking about they'd like to see them match up, for one world champion. Yeah, yep.
And but it's not that easy to do, but they were really trying to work it up. Now, to me, is if you really wanted the AWA World Title to mean something, you would have had more than a 2-minute match, which was for the main event. But this by far, and I don't remember that these two fought on this show. I really don't.
I didn't either.
It actually threw me for a surprise.
Yeah, it's great. Go ahead.
When you sent this over, Sean, I was like, I do remember this whole pay-per-view, and I have seen some matches throughout the years, but I didn't remember Magnum and Ric Flair being on the show. I really didn't. So it was a nice surprise. I gave this 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed watching it. we finally got to see a match between the two because, like you said, all the build-up we're watching and we haven't seen anything yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I had really enjoyed watching these two go at it. And it would have been interesting had Magnum not had that accident.
Well, that was a Stargate 86
would have been
easily, right? So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. It would have been interesting to see him as NWA World Champion, see how he would have done. Yeah. And that this match made me really think that, wow. And, Magnum still looked good even though he lost the match because, it was like, oh, he pulled his tight, So I like that. You keep both guys looking good and looking strong. And Ric Flair is just amazing. Like you said, now he's going to Memphis. He was truly a traveling world champion, and he always made that territory's champion or their top star look great when he left, even better than they did before he came, even if they didn't win the champion.
And the other thing I like that here's the thing. When we started this podcast, all of us were very unimpressed with Magnum TA. And for me, this puts him in the ball game. And well, this match will start that journey. There's another match down the line we'll watch that we absolutely puts him in the ball game. But this one, I'm with you. This puts him up there with me as, okay, now I see it. Now I get it. He belongs here. That's kind of how I feel.
I know we're going to be getting to awards soon, but I have to say that this was definitely the best match of the night for me.
Yeah. Okay, I got it. So I have a debate on that one with another match, but I think I'm with you on that actually. So and one more thing before I go over to Matt. After the match, Flair says Chicago not used to seeing a winner. Get used to Ric Flair. He's all there is. And then Nelson asked TA if Flair grabbed the trunks. And then I've said, well, we all saw that he grabbed the trunks, you idiot. Larry's just terrible. I can't stand him. TA says, of course he did. Anyone with eyes saw it, and I got 1, 2, 3, and then he says Flair a long way from over. So that's how they actually ended the show or the watch match. So, Matt, what'd you think of this match?
Yeah, I loved this match a whole lot. And like you guys mentioned, it was the first sign that of what the you could see what the NWA wanted Magnum to be. Like, this was the first sign of that. Just a great back and forth match. Flair did a great job making Magnum seem like a legit threat to the title. I liked Magnum actually getting a visual pin over Flair, even though the spot wasn't great. I liked the idea of said spot in theory. I thought the finishing sequence was great. I liked Flair holding the tights to pin him. It keeps Magnum strong. And I actually had seen this match before because it ended up on a DVD that WWE put out. I can't remember for the life of me which one, but I had seen it before. I want to say they did it was either a World Heavyweight Title DVD or something like that. It's on there, so I had seen this once or twice before. But just a tremendous match. I went 3 3/4 on it.
All right, Calum, bring us home.
How far has Magnum come since we watched that first in the April show? On our first show, we watched the match with Scott Irwin, and it was
Hog Irwin.
To think he's gone from there to here. I love this match as well. I've gone 3 3/4 on this one as well. It's really strange. It's like these guys work so well together. You almost guaranteed a good match with them every single time they go in. Even the 10-minute match they had on Saturday night that we watched was really good for what it was. The only thing that's bringing it down, and for the want of sounding like a very well-known wrestling observer, this match would have been so much better if it was in the Omni or in Greensboro. I think that was
in front of a hot NWA crowd, right?
Yeah, if you're in front of a Crockett stronghold, this match would have had that intangible, that X factor that this match didn't have, unfortunately, just because of where in the country it was. But other than that, it was superb.
Yeah, I think it's a. Go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say this could be one of the other than the Rock and Roll Express and the Russians. This could be one of the best matches we've seen on since starting the show.
I'd probably agree with you on that. It's interesting to me that you never hear this match really discussed in the history of wrestling, and I would tell everyone to go if you give. I mean, this match is on YouTube. Just search SuperClash, it comes up. This is definitely one of those hidden gems that you don't hear talked about nearly enough. This is really a fantastic match. And I thought it was a good way to end the show and really closes off a strong month for Ric Flair. Even though his month's not over, he's still got to go to Memphis. But as far as televised, I mean, Flair's had a really good month, even, with that Hercules dude, but closes it strong. 3 pinfall wins as a world champion. I think him and Lawler actually go to a double count out because Lawler's not going to lose a Memphis to Flair, obviously. But yeah, just good stuff. So with that ends our match watch and the 3 super shows. Again, got everyone. These shows are all available on YouTube. And if you want to go back and watch these matches, they're easy to find. Quite easily, just run the search of the name of the show. So we're going to go around and do our awards real quick. We only have 4 awards tonight, and I will go first off, best match. This one was very hard for me because I really loved Wahoo and Flair, but the payoff to TA and Flair after 5-6 months of waiting to see a payoff does it all for me. So I went with TA and Flair. Dr. G, who'd you have?
TA Flair.
Right.
I really enjoyed that match.
All right, Calum?
Yeah, Magnum TA versus Ric Flair. I think this could be, out of everything we watched so far, if this is GWCW eligible, this could be a contender for a lot of lists.
Unfortunately, it's not. I don't think anything we watched tonight is that contender, unfortunately. So I don't know all the rules, but I don't think it's there. It's in the rule. I don't know. The rules are ridiculous sometimes. I don't get it. But anyway, I'll go to Souza. What'd you think? Best match?
Jimmy Valiant versus
you're on the wrong award.
Oh, excuse me. Ric Flair Magnum TA by a hair.
All right. Yeah. So Universal, everybody said. But guys, again, go back and watch the Road Warriors against Race and Hanson. Go back and watch the Road Warriors Freebirds. Contrary to Colin McDougal's really bad shit take, go back and watch Wahoo and Ric Flair as well. So, all right.
That one's optional.
All right. Worst match, I think universally we'll all say Valiant and Kamala. Am I wrong in that?
You're not wrong.
Are all matches eligible? Like all 9 matches are eligible, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so I would probably put Wahoo versus Flair.
Oh, get out of here!
Sorry, I can't.
You know what? I'm vetoing that. You're going to pick Valiant and Kamala.
No, I have actually picked Valiant versus Kamala.
All right.
Because that was just awful.
All right. Out of all 3 shows, what was the best show we watched tonight? This is a tough one. So I will go to Calum. Out of all 3 shows, what was the best overall show of the 3 matches we watched?
For me, I thought the best show was AWA show.
Okay. Matt, what'd you think?
SuperClash for me.
Okay. Dr. G.
Ooh, this was so tough for me because that Battle of the Belts brought back a lot of memories. But I have to go with the SuperClash. It was very tough.
Yeah,
that Magnum Ric Flair match just put it over for me, and in seeing the Warriors and the Freebirds go at it, so that was tough. But it's very close.
Yeah, I mean, if I went star ratings, because I went 2 I think I went 2 on Billy Jack and Rude, and then I gave 4 to Wahoo, and then I gave 3 to the Brawl. However, I think I have to go with SuperClash because I think TA Flair sends it over for me, so I'm going to go with SuperClash too. And obviously, I don't think the worst is going to surprise anybody. Dr. G, what was the worst show out of the 3 we'll watch tonight?
Oh, what do you think that one's going to be? Definitely good old Puerto Rico, the 5th annual, whatever the heck was the name of that?
5th annual shit show is what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, anniversary, right. WWC anniversary. Yeah, I'm done with that. That was awful.
All right, Calum?
Yeah, it would probably need to be, despite both having pretty poor main events, in my opinion. Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico's got to be the worst. But none of the really, other than the last 10 minutes of the Flair match, I don't think there was very many redeemable features on any of the matches.
All right, and I know that Souza is going to not pick the World Wrestling Council because he really enjoyed the Valiant match.
Oh, yeah, it's my favorite match of all time. No, it was the hottest of hot trash. So, yeah, that show, for sure.
Yeah, don't go out of your way to watch that show. It was a complete waste of time, and it's only on here because it's a super show, and it's a super piece of shit. So don't go watch it.
Don't waste your time.
Don't waste your time. That's right. All right, so guys, with that ends our bonus episode of September Super Shows. So really good fun, good watch, good conversation, good matches. So really go out of your way to go watch these matches that we talked about. Don't go out of your way to watch the ones that we didn't like, with the exception of Colin McDougall. Ignore everything he said about the Wahoo match and go watch it. And so we will be back in 2 weeks. On December 30th, we will have our normal September watch where we look at September NWA Crockett, and we'll have our special guest, Jacob Williams, who was our guest on our first episode. So it will be great to have Jake back. And I will have to say there's probably an all-time video of Magnum TA that is probably the greatest video you will ever see in one of our Crockett watches. It's definitely one for the record book, so I look forward to talking about that. So real quick, we'll go around the horn and see what everybody has to plug. So Dr. G, what do you got?
All right, always listen to the NWA Saturday Special. It drops every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. And usually Scott and I are ranting about something, usually him ranting more than me, which, when we were younger, we went to college together. I was the one that was always ranting, and he was the calm one. I don't know how that all switched, but we'll have some fun with that as we do every week. And I know that we'll have a year in pop that'll be probably airing sometime at the end of December. And of course, this show.
All right, excellent. Colin, what you got?
So just last Saturday, as we are recording this, we dropped the 1 year anniversary special of the Special Relations, where we managed to convince Rory to live watch an NXT show. So we live watched NXT Our Evolution. So for those who don't remember, that is main evented by Sami Zayn and Neville. So that was a fun watch. We do take the usual diversions along the way that we normally do, because it's better than talking about Baron Corbin. But that was a fun show to do. Other than that, and other than this show, not much else. Although, when are we dropping this, Sean?
This show will drop on December 16th.
December 16th. So this coming Sunday, which as you're listening would be December 20th, there will be another Twitch watch along for TLC. Don't know what the card's going to be like at this point in time, but Drew McIntyre is your WWE champion, so I mean there's always that to look forward to. So twitch.tv/Place to Be Nation for that one. Join along with us if you're watching the show and don't want to listen to Corey Graves and Byron Saxton.
And the Twitch watch-alongs are always fun. So Colin does a really, really great job putting that together, and quite the cast of characters during those shows. So to say the least. So I'll leave it at that. All right, Matt, what you got?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show, number one. Number two, Highway to the Impact Zone. Of course, Sean, very familiar with that show. We are thankfully wrapping up our time in the asylum very, very soon. So please check that out. The misery is almost over as we move ahead to the good part of TNA coming very soon. Jenny and the Gems probably won't have an episode for December, looking like we should be back in January, so keep an eye out for that. And on my show, Piece of the Action, the last episode we did was a very special episode, a group watch featuring Sean Kidd, Ben Locke, and Scott Shiflett, where we watched a Rocky IV, the greatest movie of all time. So please check that out.
And the greatest piece of the action of all time, by the way.
It's certainly up there, let me tell you. It was very happy with how that show turned out, so please give that a listen. And you can follow me on Twitter at msouza1991.
All right, excellent. You can follow me at NWA Crock and Roll on Twitter. Like Maddie said, we have Highway to the Impact Zone. So about a week after this show drops, we will be looking at the final weekly pay-per-view of TNA, and we will have a special bonus section on that, and it actually drops on Christmas Eve. We will have an exclusive interview with Goldilocks. So I definitely look forward to that. It will be great to have her on the show. Obviously, you can also find me over on Chicken Salad. By the time this show's dropped, our newest episode looking at Starrcade 89, which happens to have a lot of love for one of Matt's other favorite wrestlers, Lex Luger, on it. So really, really strong Lex Luger podcast for all those that want to know. And Matt, I'm sure you'll have 2 hours of enjoyment on that one.
Oh,
and
sure.
Over on the North-South feed, you can catch me with Jenny and Tim doing Shrink Wrapped, the comics podcast, Psychology of Superheroes, which is also a lot of fun. So with that, I would like to thank Calum McDougall, Matt Souza. Thank you again for joining us. Of course, we'll have you back again down the road. Thank you for joining us tonight. And Dr. G, everybody have a fantastic Christmas, and we will be back with our normal September watch the day before New Year's on December 30th. Thanks, everybody.